It's a bright, lovely day outside, but the mood inside the palace is quite the opposite. Yeonwoo strides down the fancy hallway, a sword held tightly in her hand. The ladies of the court gasp in shock as they see the blood smeared across her palm. Her attendants rush after her, begging her to stop so she can see a doctor, but she brushes past them, her eyes showing a haunting emptiness. She walks steadily toward the throne room, where the king sits in all his royal clothing, a smile spreading across his face at the sight of her. He announces with exaggerated joy that she has finally arrived to congratulate her husband, himself, on his birthday. However, Yeonwoo does not join in his joke. Instead, she holds his gaze firmly, her expression cold and hard. The king's joy wavers as he senses the tension in the air. He orders her to stop her reckless behavior immediately, but she responds with a strong and clear no. Confusion crosses his face, and a flicker of amusement sparkles in his eyes as he wonders if this is another attempt on his life, especially after her last unsuccessful try to take him down. His men laugh at her, dismissing Yeonwoo as just a foolish joke. Hearing their laughter, she grips the sword even tighter, and the sharp edges digs into her skin, drawing fresh blood. She tells her husband he should have just killed her instead of murdering innocent members of her family. He should have killed her and turned her into crow's food. The king urges her not to say such things, insisting that he could never kill the one that he loves. This declaration snaps something deep within our female lead's mind, and she flashes a smile that borders on insanity. She declares that her husband is crazy if he dares to call this love. Wobbling on her feet, she breaks into maniacal laughter. Yeonwoo questions him about how he can speak of love after all the terrible things he has done. Hot, bitter tears begin to stream down her face as the weight of her pain overwhelms her. She confronts him, reminding him that after he slaughtered her entire family and hung their heads on the city gate, he has the audacity to mention love. Her body trembles at the mere sound of his name, and yet he still thinks this twisted reality is love. The king gazes at her with an unsettling calmness, asserting that, of course, this is love. Her eyes, filled with disbelief, search his face for any hint of remorse or understanding. But there is only cold certainty in his expression. He tells her that she is his and his alone, just like it is carved all over her body. For the first time, we notice a branded mark just above her left breast, stark against her skin. It is a grim reminder of the king's possessiveness, a symbol of how thoroughly he believes he has claimed her. Her husband tells her that she belongs to him, and he smiles. She screams in defiance, declaring that she is not his, trembling as she holds her head in her hands. The king walks up to her, gently taking her hand and raising her face to meet his gaze. He tells her that she is his, and that she belongs to him forever. With a delicate touch, he kisses her fingers before turning and walking away. Suddenly, a chilling change comes over the female lead. She breaks into maniacal laughter, the sound filling the air with an unsettling energy. With madness gleaming in her eyes, she calls her husband a lunatic and says she doesn't know what she was thinking getting involved with someone like him. At this moment, the king notices the shift in her tone, and a sense of alarm washes over him. He turns around to face her as she raises the sword to her neck. She presses it against her skin with a manic smile that sends a shiver down his spine. The king, now visibly shaken, urges her to hand over the sword as cold sweat breaking out across his forehead. Yet, Yeonwoo continues to smile in that unsettling way, her eyes wild with defiance. She declares that he can never have her, and the one who can kill her is herself, not him. And with that, in one swift and violent motion, she drags the blade viciously across her neck, spilling her blood. The king screams her name as he rushes toward her. In the perpetually dark underworld, the king's birthday is the only day Yeonwoo gets to see the azure sky. But for him, it has become too much to bear. So, she has orchestrated a birthday fitting for him. As he holds her in his hands and weeps, she whispers a heartfelt happy birthday to him. In a moment of desperation, he turns around and shouts for one of his guards to fetch the physician immediately. With a hardened resolve, she tells him that, since he has wronged her, may this day mark the beginning of a lifetime of suffering for him. As he screams for his guards to hurry with the physician, she casts her gaze over the crowd gathered, and her eyes land on a peculiar face among them. She wonders who it is and why tears are streaming down the man's cheeks. A chilling thought crosses her mind. Could he be crying for her? Inwardly, she urges him not to look at her with those sorrowful eyes, for she has just executed the ultimate act of revenge. She tells herself that she must revel in this death, to savor the taste of vengeance. In her final moments, she closes her eyes and prays to Tamya, the god of the underworld. She confesses that she doesn't understand why she has been made to endure such a cruel existence, but she does not wish to repeat it. She declares that she would prefer to disappear entirely rather than be thrust into a world where her husband, Hyojo, exists in the next life. Suddenly, Yeonwoo opens her eyes and surveys her surroundings in confusion. She drops to her knees, and she cries out to the heavens in agony, asking why she has been brought here again. The sound of approaching horses' hooves ignites a panic within her, The thought of Hyojo approaching sends shivers down her spine, and she tells herself that she must escape, that she needs to flee immediately. Yet, as she tries to will her legs to move, they remain stubbornly unresponsive. In that moment of anguish, she hears a voice behind her. Turning around, she finds herself face to face with a strikingly beautiful man who gazes at her with awe. He speaks softly and says she is someone from Earth. Yeonwoo turns around to see the man mounted on the horse, and she immediately notices that things are different from before. In her previous life, Hyojo definitely appeared, but the man she sees now is entirely different. A voice comes from her left side, asking if everyone is okay. Yeonwoo turns to see her father and younger sister, and even her mom. Everyone is still alive, and her eyes glitter with tears of relief. The strange man observes them and notes that they look like they've had an accident. He inquires if they are all okay. Her father replies that none of them are injured, then turns to the man on the horse, asking why he is wearing that peculiar outfit and whether there is a drama filming nearby. Yeonwoo and her entire family are dressed in modern clothing, while the man on the horse dons historical attire. Her father continues, asking the stranger if he can borrow a phone since his own has stopped working after the accident. The horseman seems puzzled, saying he's not sure what Yeonwoo's father is talking about, but he might still be able to help. He turns to one of his guards and commands him to escort Yeonwoo's family to meet Lord Jangkong. Our female lead's eyes widen with alarm at the mention of Lord Jangkong. He is the ruler of this place, the underworld, and also Hyojo's father. If things keep progressing like this, she realizes she might run into Hyojo soon, and he could already be on his way here. It's simply not safe. She thinks frantically that she needs to run away with her family, that they must leave this place as soon as possible. But where can they go? Just then, her younger sister Seowoo calls out to her from behind, mentioning that the man on the horse is going to help them. Suddenly, Seowoo stops mid-sentence, pointing out that Yeonwoo's hair has changed color. In that moment, our female lead looks at her hair and notices for the first time that it is now a brilliant shade of silver. The man on the horse remarks that her hair is truly beautiful, and that he has never seen such radiant hair before. He invites her to please come with him. Confused, she glances back at him. Her father quickly intervenes, questioning the man as to why he wants to take only his oldest daughter. The stranger assures her father not to worry, stating that he will ensure they are all reunited again after they meet with Lord Jangkong. Her father, skeptical, asks why he should believe such words. Suddenly, Yeonwoo thinks to herself that if they keep this up, they will most likely run into Hyojo. Memories flood her mind of her family's tragic death in her previous life, and she feels an overwhelming wave of guilt. It's her fault that they ended up this way. Determined to change things, she quickly voices her decision to go with the man on the horse. Her younger sister gasps, asking if she's serious, while her father warns that it's too dangerous. Yeonwoo thinks that she's not sure if this is the right choice, but if she wants to avoid meeting Hyojo right now, there truly isn't another option. At that moment, her mother angrily interrupts, insisting that her father and sister should leave her alone. She points out that our female lead has always operated on her own terms, unaware of the anguish burning in her family's hearts, or the worry that she is causing them. Yeonwoo starts to explain herself, but her mother cuts her off, declaring that she no longer cares and that Yeonwoo can do as she pleases. She then calls to her husband and Seowoo to follow the guard and to leave with him. Her father hesitates, asking if it's truly okay to leave their oldest daughter behind. She gazes at her family, pain etched on her face, knowing she can't explain everything she feels because they simply wouldn't understand. Deep down, she promises herself that this time around, she will definitely protect her family. Turning her attention back to the strange man, she steels herself. He tells her that she is quite an unusual woman for agreeing to be left alone with him in such a situation. He says it must have been a difficult choice. Holding out her hand, she responds that she has no other options at this point. She asks him if he has something important to discuss with her alone, certain that he does. When the man watches her with curiosity, she urges him to take her hand. Without hesitation, he grasps it and kisses it softly, declaring that it is an honor to hold the hand of such a beautiful woman in the underworld. Then he asks her what it is she wishes to say. Our female lead takes a deep breath, steeling her resolve. After falling into the underworld due to a car accident, she reflects on how she has always returned to this very place each time she has died in the underworld. This happens to be her third time in the underworld, and through the bitter experiences of her previous lives, she vows to use everything she has learned in an effort to escape Hyojo. With a newfound determination, she rises to her feet, affirming to herself that she can indeed do this. Looking into the stranger's eyes, she boldly tells him to own her. The man tells our female lead that asking someone who she has just met to own her is a very bold move. He asks her if she is aware of the meaning of her statement, and she replies that she is well aware. Having lived 2 lives in the underworld, she has come to realize one crucial truth. Once you are here, you can never return to your original world. It is even more impossible to remain unnoticed by Hyojo. The thought of repeating that dreadful life fills her with despair. She would rather die than endure the same fate again, so she expresses to this stranger that she would be his woman. He looks at her with a confused expression on his face. Then, leaning closer, he gently slips some of her hair behind her ear. He mentions that her confession somehow appears sad, and wonders out loud why she would make such a mournful face while proposing to become his woman in this world. His curiosity about her grows, but he states firmly that he would not accept a woman that he does not even know. Just then, Yeonwoo interrupts him, insisting that he must accept her. She explains that usually, when a lost person is found, they are checked for injuries or sent home. Yet he attempted to introduce her family to a person named Jang Kong, suggesting that this is the established rule in their realm. Also, he requested to speak to her separately, meaning he broke an important protocol. With a savage smile on her face, she asks him if she is wrong. He responds with a smile of his own, acknowledging that her request does not seem simple at all. However, he requests a moment of her patience. Without further ado, he lifts her effortlessly and places her on his horse. He proposes a deal, clarifying that, as he mentioned earlier, he does not accept strangers. Moreover, he expresses his doubt that she is innocent enough to genuinely wish to be his woman. He urges her to be honest about what she truly desires. Looking down at him from her perch on the horse, Yeonwoo states that her heart's true wish is for her family to be safe, no matter what happens. She pleads with him to protect them. He smiles, indicating that he understands her request, and climbs up behind her on the horse, kicking it into a gallop. As they ride, he points out that they have not yet exchanged names. He introduces himself as Huida, and with genuine interest asks for her name. Our female lead responds, sharing that she is Yeonwoo, Chai Yeonwoo. With a moment of respite, she closes her eyes, allowing herself to enjoy the breeze rushing past her. It has been a long time since she has had the freedom to wander outside in this manner. Huida compliments her, claiming that she possesses a truly beautiful name. After some time riding together, he announces that they have arrived. He explains that they are at the back door of the castle and advises her to keep her hair concealed, as it stands out too much. Glancing towards the door, she suddenly notices some flowers that capture her attention. Huida observes her reaction and comments that it must be her first time seeing that particular flower. He explains that this flower blooms only in the underworld, a realm perpetually shrouded in darkness, with the sky always pitch black, illuminated only by the reddish glow of the lava pits. These flowers thrive on the ashes from the lava, which provide them with the necessary nutrients to blossom. After his insightful explanation, Yeonwoo replies dryly, saying that she understands. A flashback invades her mind, and she recalls Hyojo giving her those very flowers and telling her that they bloom as beautifully as she does. Her hatred for the flowers surges, and she glances at them with loathing. Huida notices her reaction but decides to remain silent, respecting her unspoken feelings. The flowers serve as a painful reminder that she is back in this sickening and dreadful place. As they stand at the back door, it suddenly opens, and someone steps out, calling out to Huida. The newcomer informs him that they have been waiting for the horsemen. Yeonwoo's eyes widen in recognition upon hearing the familiar voice. The woman greets her and announces that she will be accompanying Yeonwoo in the future. With a warm smile, she introduces herself as Sarim. Unexpectedly, a flashback washes over our female lead, bringing to mind a moment where she lays on a bed, and Sarim, her dedicated handmaid, comforts her by holding her hands. Sarim encourages her to admit when things are tough, assuring her that no matter what happens, she will always be by her side. In the present moment, Yeonwoo allows a sad smile to grace her lips, glad to see Sarim once more. The maid informs her that her family members have been settled in a comfortable place, which should bring her some relief. However, Yeonwoo's expression shifts dramatically, her eyes widening with anxiety upon realizing that Sarim is Hyojo's subordinate. The realization creates a storm of confusion within her. Why is Sarim here? Huida, undeterred, instructs the maid to accompany our female lead, advising her to dye Yeonwoo's hair. He merely requests that any color will suffice, as long as it does not shine too much. Afterward, he insists that Sarim should provide Yeonwoo with a bath and change her clothes before bringing her to his chamber. Our female lead, taken aback, turns to look at him in surprise. Huida glances down at her with a hint of mischief in his smile. Then he informs her that they will be spending the night together. In the next scene, we find Sarim and our female lead, Yeonwoo, alone together. The maid, with a bright smile on her face, shares the news with Yeonwoo as they walk through the expansive residence. She tells her that this will be her home from now on and encourages her to feel free to explore. Yeonwoo nods in response, thanking her softly but soon looks away, feeling a bit uncomfortable. Summoning her courage, she tries to articulate her thoughts, but Sarim, perceptive as always, encourages her to share what's on her mind. Yeonwoo takes a deep breath and expresses her preference not to be addressed as Miss. She asks Sarim to speak more casually with her, feeling that it would create a more relaxed atmosphere. Furthermore, she mentions that she senses a misunderstanding between them, but reassures Sarim that there is nothing romantic going on between her and Huida. She insists that his earlier remarks do not imply anything of that nature. Before she can finish, Sarim interrupts, shaking her head slightly. She explains that first of all, Huida referred to Yeonwoo as Miss, so it would be inappropriate for her to speak informally to someone whom her master has addressed in that manner. Sarim pauses to gather her thoughts, then she adds that bringing a lady home is a first for Sir Huida. Yeonwoo looks surprised at this revelation, her mind racing back to the moment when Huida had gently kissed her fingers. She can't help but think to herself that he doesn't appear to embody that kind of behavior at all. Sarim begins to say something else, but then she looks away sadly and tells our female leader that it's nothing. She adds that it's not her place to speak about it. However, one thing is clear, Yeonwoo is special to Huida. When our female leader hears this, she is genuinely surprised. As she continues to walk with her maid, she turns to Sarim and asks what kind of person Huida really is. The maid pauses for a moment and then asks her if she happens to know what guardian spirits are. Yeonwoo gulps in response and looks away before replying that she has never heard of them before. Sarim takes this opportunity to explain, her tone becoming more serious. She elaborates that those who are born and raised here in the underworld are all imbued with the spirits of beasts. These spirits are what the inhabitants call guardian spirits. Sarim describes the range of these spirits, noting how they can vary from weaker ones, like rabbits or sparrows, to much more powerful entities, like tigers that reign over all animals. As she speaks, she gestures animatedly, emphasizing the variety of guardian spirits. She continues, saying that in dire situations, one can actually manifest their guardian spirits. The stronger the spirit, the stronger the individual is perceived to be. Yeonwoo listens intently, pretending to look thoughtful as she processes this information. Deep down, she has known about this all along. She is acutely aware that the most formidable individuals in the underworld include the king of the palace, who possesses the spirit of a tiger as his guardian spirit, and Hyojo, who is imbued with the spirit of a brown bear. Sarim continues to speak, revealing that Huida possesses the spirit of a black wolf, which is why people refer to him as the Black Wolf. Our female lead looks surprised, and a wave of realization washes over her as she recalls the look on Huida's face during their first encounter. She thinks to herself that the guardian spirit suits him quite well, aligning perfectly with his aura. In the next scene, we find her comfortably settled in a bath. Sarim eagerly asks her what color she would like to dye her hair. The maids chime in, suggesting that with Yeonwoo's fair complexion, any color would suit her beautifully. After a moment of thought, Sarim playfully inquires if Yeonwoo would consider dyeing her hair black, similar to Huida's striking locks. Yeonwoo notices Sarim's excitement and smiles inwardly. The old Sarim, who was never particularly sociable, seems to have transformed. This newfound cheerfulness feels both heartwarming and slightly unfamiliar to her. As she reflects on this change, Yeonwoo recalls the words of her handmaid from her previous life, who had vowed to always be by her side. Yet, because it is Sarim, she wants to believe wholeheartedly that this promise holds true once more. So much has transformed in this life already. In the place where she was supposed to meet Hyojo, she met Huida instead. Also, she met Sarim not at Hyojo's castle, but at Huida's dwelling. The same goes for her hair. She wonders why the color suddenly changed, and she looks at it with picks up some strands with distaste. Sarim chides her gently, telling her not to touch her hair, as the dye might stain her hands. As Yeonwoo sits there, she gets the distinct feeling that each situation is attempting to convey something important, a message that this life will be different from her previous experiences. Consequently, she feels a flicker of hope ignite within her, a hope that maybe, just this time, things could turn out in ways she has only dared to imagine. Suddenly, her maid calls out, sounding distressed. She reveals that she has applied the dye diligently to Yeonwoo's hair, but it hasn't changed color. It has only dulled the shine. Yeonwoo responds calmly, saying it's all right as long as her hair doesn't shine brightly. However, Sarim seems disappointed, expressing that she had wanted to match Yeonwoo's hair color with Huida's. Yeonwoo looks at her in disbelief, surprised that this was her intention. She reassures her maid that it can't be helped and compliments her hair color, saying it's pretty just the way it is. Grateful, she thanks her maid for her hard work. Sarim then decides to step aside, allowing Yeonwoo to rest comfortably. As she enjoys the warmth of her bath, the hot water soothing her skin, she reflects on the events of the night and her encounter with Huida. Although he had proposed a deal, she realizes that she didn't truly hear what he wanted at all. A flicker of doubt crosses her mind. Still, deep down, she wonders if she is truly special to him, just as Sarim insists. Maybe he will protect her and her family, regardless of the terms of that deal. Eventually, she steps out of the bathtub and wraps a robe tightly around her body. As she acclimates to the cool air outside, Huida calls out to her from the side, asking if she's finished. Her cheeks heat up and she turns around, looking at him in surprise. He confesses that he had heard it usually takes women longer to prepare, but to be honest, waiting like this isn't so bad at all. Yeonwoo starts to stutter, flustered by both his presence and his words. She asks him what he is doing in there, struggling with a mix of embarrassment and confusion. Trying to lighten the mood, Huida tells her not to be too angry. With a sudden push, he gently nudges her backward, teasingly reminding her that she is the one who proposed the idea first. He reminds her that she's the one who asked to be his woman. Feeling overwhelmed, our female lead looks away, refusing to meet Huida's gaze. In a flustered tone, she also reminds him that he had made it very clear he does not accept women he doesn't know. Huida nods in agreement, acknowledging his previous statement. However, he explains that this is exactly why he is here now, to discuss the terms of their deal. He mentions that he doesn't recall ever officially stating his conditions for their agreement, and adds that now that he has accepted her terms, it's only fair that she accepts his in order for a genuine deal to be struck. Curiosity piqued, she expresses her desire to know more and asks him what his conditions are. A smile spreads across his face as he responds with confidence that it's very simple. From now on, he wants Yeonwoo to be his bride. Huida tells her that from this moment onward, he would like it if she would become his wife. This statement annoys her, and she asks him if it is fun for him to toy with her emotions. She argues that a woman whom he has just met for the first time asking him to take her seems laughable, which is why he had acted aloof toward her words and turned her down back then. She questions whether he thinks it is wrong for him to say this now, clenching her fist in anger as she looks away in frustration. Finally, Huida gently tucks some strands of hair behind her ears and apologizes. He admits that he hasn't explained himself well, which has led to her misunderstanding him. Huida apologizes for not having fully considered Yeonwoo's feelings. He continues, explaining that to be driven to the point of telling a man she has just met to take her, she must indeed be in quite a difficult situation. He asserts that he feels the same. Huida clarifies that he did not say what he did to lie or play a joke on her at all. Instead, he asks if she would give him a chance to explain his situation. He reveals to her that in the underworld, Jangkong holds a special status. He is the king, and at the same time, he commands the strongest familia. Huida mentions that there are currently 2 candidates being discussed to become Jangkong's successor. Yeonwoo's surprise grows as she recalls that Jangkong only has one son, Hyojo. Huida continues, explaining that one of the 2 candidates is Jangkong's direct descendant, named Hyojo, while the other candidate is himself, Huida, who is Jangkong's distant cousin. Yeonwoo looks at him in surprise as he reveals that Hyojo is currently threatening him because his existence is an obstacle to Hyojo's claim to the throne. Huida expresses that to demonstrate he is not interested in the position of successor, he needs a woman who is entirely unrelated to the royal family. And just at that moment, she has appeared in his life. He cautiously asks her what she thinks and if she would consider becoming his pretend wife. Furthermore, he suggests that when she is ready to accept her role, she should return to his chambers. As Yeonwoo prepares for the night, dressed in royal regalia, she reflects on what it means to be a pretend wife. She is escorted to Huida's chambers, with her presence formally announced. Lost in thought, she considers that in her past life, she had never heard of a distant cousin of Jangkong. Doubt fills her mind as she questions how much of his story is the truth, but ultimately she realizes she has no other options. When Huida gives her permission to enter, he greets her warmly, clearly pleased to see her. Yeonwoo thinks to herself that she is ready to accept his position. In her mind, it no longer matters what it is, Huida's status or situation. She must utilize everything within her reach, just as he is using her. Huida observes her expression and asks if she has made her decision. She affirmatively replies that she will be his wife. A delighted smile spreads across his face, and he confirms that it's a deal. Huida then offers her his hand and gestures toward the bed, instructing her to join him there. He emphasizes that, to outsiders, they must appear as 2 lovers who have fallen in love at first sight. He leans closer, preparing to place his lips against her neck, and asks if she would be comfortable with that. However, in that moment, he notices her earrings, and mentions that he had instructed Sarim not to allow her to wear them. He wonders aloud if the maid had simply forgotten. Gathering his composure, he leans forward, his lips hovering close to her ear. Just then, Yeonwoo is jolted by a flashback of Hyojo, who had once placed his lips near her neck. Hyojo's voice echoes in her memory, reminding her not to forget that the only person she can let near her in such an intimate way is him. Yeonwoo's eyes widen in horror, and she suddenly screams for Huida to let her go. Surprised by her reaction, he looks down at her, his expression shifting to confusion. Instinctively, he releases her, but Yeonwoo continues to scream for him to let go of her, her panic increasing as she struggles to process the tangled emotions spiraling within her. Yeonwoo continues to scream for Huida to let go of her, and although she struggles, he slowly sets her down, clearly confused by her behavior. He remarks that she is unpredictable as he supports her with his arm. Outside, 3 maids stand close, listening to what is happening inside. One asks what that sound was, while another says she heard a lady scream. Sareem steps closer, trying to hear better. However, the other two warn her not to, reminding her that if she is caught, she will not be spared. Just then, the door opens, and Lord Huida sees all three of them standing there. He tells the others to leave and asks Sareem to stay. After they leave, he reminds her that he told her to wait for his orders and does not recall allowing her to listen in. She calmly explains that since it is an important night, she thought he might need something, even subtly flattering herself. He then says it is over, and that the important night will not happen again. Naturally, she asks what went wrong and why Yeonwoo screamed like that, but instead of answering directly, he instructs her to check for herself. As a result, Sareem enters and sees Yeonwoo lying down. After checking her, she says it is only a brief loss of consciousness and that she will be fine after some rest. She then questions why she cried like that, but he simply replies that he did nothing, which leads her to tease him, saying he handles other matters well yet chose to treat her this way. However, he thinks to himself that from the start, she was not even looking at him properly, as if her mind was elsewhere, and he wonders what occupied her thoughts. Sareem advises him to treat her well, reminding him that she is important and offering to help her feel comfortable, yet he admits he does not know how. He then asks if she has checked the marks on her neck, and she confirms she has but has not been able to trace them yet. She adds that she thought he would confirm it after spending the night, but since her condition is not good, it will be difficult for now. He says he understands and tells her to leave, making it clear that everything that happened today must remain secret. She agrees before leaving. Left alone, Huida walks toward Yeonwoo, looks at her, and admits that she is making him worried. The next day, Yeonwoo suddenly wakes up, screaming Hyojo's name. At that moment, Huida, sitting quietly in a corner and drinking tea, asks if she had a nightmare and how she is feeling now. He explains that she suddenly collapsed the previous night, which worried him. She struggles to remember what happened, and he reassures her that it is fine, gently urging her to eat first. However, he decides to make something clear, reminding her that she asked him for protection and that he agreed yet wants to know what exactly he is protecting her from, insisting that he needs to know everything. Hearing this, Yeonwoo begins to think deeply, wondering how much she can truly tell him. She stutters slightly and finally admits that she had a husband, her ex-husband. Yeonwoo says that before speaking about her previous husband, she will first talk about her childhood. She explains that her family consists of a strict mother, a loving father, a mature first daughter, and an affectionate second daughter. Although it looks like a normal family to others, she always feels like an outsider in that home. She recalls a moment at school where a teacher announces that the next class will be a parents' observation day and instructs everyone to show their parents the family newsletter. As she looks at the newsletter, she wonders if it would be okay to tell her mother. Later at home, she shouts at Seo-woo, asking why the house is so messy when their parents will soon return and questioning who will clean it. Although her sister says she will do it, this only makes her more frustrated. Their argument is interrupted by the sound of the door opening as their parents return. Seo-woo immediately runs to them, asking to be carried. Meanwhile, their mother looks at Yeonwoo with disapproval, and she bows with guilt and greets her. The mother questions the state of the house, and although Yeonwoo tries to blame her younger sister, she is quickly stopped and reminded that it is her responsibility to take care of her. She is told that the older one must act properly for the younger one to follow. She apologizes, and her mother says she is going upstairs to wash up, instructing her to clean the mess before she returns. As Yeonwoo picks up the toys on the floor, she thinks it would be better not to mention the parents' observation day, because even if she does, her mother will be too busy to come. She decides not to inconvenience her. The next day, Yeonwoo heads out to school and informs everyone that she is leaving. However, her mother calls her back and asks if she has something to say. She becomes shocked and confused, asking what she means, and is told that it is parents' observation day. Her mother wonders why she did not mention it. Yeonwoo admits she did not, explaining that she did not intend to hide it, but since her mother is always busy, she did not want to bother her. At that moment, her mother notices her hesitation and instructs her to look her in the eye and answer clearly whether she wants her to attend, urging her to think carefully. Yeonwoo stutters, then says she wants her mother to come, quietly reflecting that she has not seen her mother smile in a long time. Her mother calmly sips her tea and says that since it is her daughter's class, she should of course attend, assuring her that she will see her later at school. Feeling hopeful, Yeonwoo becomes happy that her mother will come to see her. She promises herself that she will work harder so that her teacher's compliments will make her mother proud and encourage her to come again next time. She believes she can become a daughter who receives love. However, at the end of the school day, her mother expresses disappointment, saying she expected her to be the smartest girl in her class. After seeing the other parents, she felt embarrassed. She explains that she wanted to see how well Yeonwoo was doing, but if things remain this way, she will not come again. As she looks at her, Yeonwoo quietly wishes her mother would keep coming. Yet her mother says she had wanted to proudly show others how smart and pretty her daughter is, but was unable to do so. She then says that if Yeonwoo promises to improve, she will come again, and Yeonwoo agrees. After that, her mother steps away to take a phone call and asks Yeonwoo to watch over Seowoo. While Yeonwoo and Seowoo stand by the roadside waiting, Seowoo asks if they should keep waiting. Yeonwoo admits she does not know, but the call seems to be taking too long. Seowoo suggests leaving, but Yeonwoo stops her, telling her to stay and wait a little longer since it appears to be almost over. However, unable to remain patient, Seowoo suddenly runs onto the road. Yeonwoo immediately shouts for her to come back, reminding her to listen to her elder sister. In a panic, she runs after her without checking the road. At that moment, both of them are hit by a moving car. People nearby begin shouting for an ambulance, while their mother rushes toward them as they lie on the ground after the accident. Yeonwoo suddenly wakes up in a hospital bed and turns her head to see Seowoo lying nearby, fully bandaged. She feels relieved that she is also safe, while at the same time apologizing for not being able to protect her this time. Soon after, she hears voices outside the door and realizes they belong to her parents. From their conversation, she overhears them arguing about the hospital bills. Her mother complains that they cannot afford to pay, and warns that if they fail to handle the situation, they may end up back on the streets, while her father tries to calm her down by telling her to lower her voice. She refuses and continues, eventually breaking down in tears. Listening to this, Yeonwoo blames herself, thinking that if she had not asked her mother to come to school, the accident would not have happened and her sister would not have been hurt. She cries, taking full responsibility for everything, believing it all started from her mistake. As time passes, both Yeonwoo and Seowoo are discharged from the hospital, but due to the high cost of their treatment, the family is forced to sell their home and move into an older one. After the accident, their mother begins to treat Yeonwoo differently, often reprimanding her. Whenever she looks at her, it feels as though everything points back to her, making it difficult to even maintain eye contact. Years later, Yeonwoo grows into a well-known composer, and although she still struggles to move her little finger properly, people describe her as a beautiful composer who has overcome pain, which brings her more attention. One day, her song reaches the charts for the first time, and she quickly runs to share the news with her mother, only to hear her say she is proud of her while also asking when she can send the monthly living expenses. Yeonwoo responds that she expects payment within the week and will send it as soon as she receives it. Her mother, relieved, says she is glad things are going well and that there will be enough money, adding that the month has been very difficult and thanks her. Yeonwoo accepts this without hesitation, saying it is her duty to support the family, showing how deeply she has accepted her role despite everything she has gone through. One day, her entire family were inside a car, traveling together and feeling happy, when suddenly the brakes stopped working. Her father, who was driving, shouted for everyone to be careful, but despite his warning, the car crashed. As a result, they all fell into the underworld for the first time, which is where she met Hyojo. He looked at her and said she reminded him of his mother, and at that moment, he fell in love with her at first sight. In addition, he treated her family with great hospitality and provided them with a place to stay inside his palace. As he whispered words of love to her, she experienced those feelings for the first time, and it slowly affected her, making her feel as though a warm spring had arrived in her heart. Later, one night, Yeonwoo steps outside and sees Hyojo standing with other people. She notices that he is torturing them to the point where blood is visible, which shocks her deeply. She asks what he is doing, but he dismisses her concern and shifts his attention to her instead, saying he heard one of them touched her and asking her to mention who it was. She hesitates in confusion and shock, explaining that they only caught her just as when she was about to fall. He explains that it is natural to punish them directly and insists that she simply tell him who it was so he can kill that person, even going as far as mentioning that he has already done such things to other innocent people. Seeing her reaction, he realizes she is surprised, so he gently holds her hand and reassures her that everything will be fine, promising to handle everything for her while declaring his love. In her vulnerable state, this begins to quietly affect her perception of him. Now we are brought into a tense moment as Huida listens to everything Yeonwoo has said, and immediately he asks if something like that really happened and even offers to protect her from her ex. And this makes her pause as she wonders if he misunderstood and thought her husband was just an ex. And then she admits that because of her ex-husband, she became afraid of men. And in response, he asks if she is afraid of him too. Yet she brushes it off. However, he continues and says he is kind, and then recalls how she once told him to have her. And from there, he assumes he must make her feel comfortable, even adding that if she had not collapsed last night, he would have shown her what kind of man he is. And yet she apologizes, while he brushes it aside and says it is fine since he did not mean it, and instead tells her he has somewhere to go with her today, explaining that there is a banquet at the small shop he runs, and that he has to change his face. Yeonwoo questions why she should go to such a place, and he responds that he wants to do what a lover should do as a man, and even asks if he should make their relationship known. And later he tells her she must also follow him on his schedules for now, while assuring her that if she needs anything, she can call Sareem or Soho at any time and that he will always be by her side. And then he introduces Soho as the one who will escort her from now on, and apologizes for the late introduction, adding that although he is young, he is very talented and will protect her when he is not around. And she says she is fine with it, although she then asks if she will be apart from him often, and he assures her it will not happen much since they will be using one room anyway, which shocks her. Yet he calmly says it is natural since they are lovers, and she accepts while still feeling uneasy about it. And then, as if that was not enough, he adds that after the banquet he plans to visit Lord Janggong and wants to introduce her as his lover, asking if she will be okay with it. And at this point, this is starting to feel like he is locking everything in place too quickly as the situation keeps getting deeper. Yeonwoo begins to tremble while thinking about Hyojo, and in her mind she tries to calm herself by reminding herself that she is going there as Huida's lover, and that he would not be able to treat her carelessly. However, her body still shakes, and he notices this and asks if she is okay, pointing out that her eyes have not looked right for a while, and then gently wipes her face with a towel. And she quickly says she is fine and that she only got lost in her thoughts, and then asks if they have arrived. Yet he instead asks if she is worried about what will happen next, and reassures her that she should not worry, because from now on she is his lover, and he promises that nothing will happen to her. And as a result, she places her hand in his, and they walk down together to the banquet. Then, as they arrive, the maids bow to welcome Lord Huida, and she recalls how he said it was just a small shop, yet what she sees says otherwise. And soon an elegantly dressed lady approaches and greets him warmly, revealing herself as Dee-hee. And after exchanging greetings, she introduces herself as the best performer there while humbly saying she always receives too much praise. And then she notices the lady beside him and asks who she is, and he clearly says she is his lover, which leaves her slightly confused. Yet she quickly recovers and calls her a precious guest and promises to serve them with more sincerity today, and then moves to the Gayagayam and begins to play. And as everyone enjoys the music and she finishes, he applauds and praises her as the best as expected. And she explains she practiced hard to give him a better song, which leads him to say it was amazing and that he will grant her one wish, telling her to ask for anything. And although she did not expect this, she makes a request that surprises everyone, asking that Yeonwoo play a song, and she reacts in confusion and asks if she is really being addressed, and she confirms that she is. Things start getting uncomfortable real fast as all attention shifts onto her. Now the moment takes a turn as Dee-hee explains that she noticed the young lady's hands and saw calluses on her fingers, which made her think she might play an instrument just like her. And she adds that a performer can always recognize another performer, therefore believing that if her guess is right, then her performance will be just as beautiful as her appearance. And as a result, Huida turns to Yeonwoo and asks if she can play, and she nods, and he tells her to go ahead, adding that while he would love to hear it, she should not do it if she does not want to. However, she accepts and says although it is sudden, she will play. But then she asks if her wish will also be granted, which confuses him, and she explains that since he liked the other performance and granted that wish, hers should count too. He lets out a soft laugh and says she still does not know him well, because even if she does not play, he would still grant all her wishes, and this makes her smile and thank him. We can see that she is slowly getting comfortable with him as she steps forward. She walks to the Gayagayam and introduces her song as Untitled, explaining that she made it when she was underground in a low room with no windows, trapped because of Hyojo's obsession. And as those empty days repeated, she found the Gayagayam, picked it up, and created the song, pouring in her regret for ever loving him and filling it with her hatred. And as she begins to play, the entire room is drawn in, while Dee-hee stands in a corner, shocked and watching closely. And everyone, including Huida, is moved by the performance. And this clearly provokes her as she cannot hide how much she is affected. And when the song ends, applause fills the room, and he praises it as the most beautiful performance he has ever heard and says since she fulfilled her part. He will keep his promise and asks for her wish, while at the same time she grows angry and walks out of the hall, unable to take it. And she decides to tell him her wish only when they are alone. And meanwhile, the other one, burning with jealousy, moves to the back, remembering his words about the best performance and thinking that the seat beside him should have been hers, and she breaks down in tears. This kind of jealousy is already turning dangerous as the tension keeps rising. After the banquet ends, Huida and Yeonwoo walk together. He admits he is truly shocked that she can play the Gayagam so beautifully. She thanks him. He then wonders if she used to play often on Earth. She explains that she did not. Instead, she made music professionally, which is why she can play many instruments a little. She adds that she has created several other songs as well, although it has been a long time since she last played them herself. As if that were not enough, he brings up something he noticed, saying that while she was performing, her pinky finger trembled slightly as if it had been injured, and he asks if she is in pain. She admits she injured it a long time ago, and although it makes it hard to perform perfectly, it no longer hurts. He remarks that it is a shame, which catches her off guard. He explains that even though she plays beautifully now, if she had not been injured, her music could have been even more beautiful. She thanks him for saying that, letting out a small sigh, thinking that such praise reaches deeper than ordinary compliments because it acknowledges both her skill and her loss. The moment shifts as he reminds her about the wish she said she would ask for. She begins to think about what she truly wants, which is to ask if they can use separate rooms. However, she hesitates, wondering if they must share one since their relationship is contractual. She also recalls that the first night was already ruined because of her, leaving her uncertain of what to say next. Yeonwoo suddenly looks up and realizes they have walked quite far. Instead of stating her wish, she simply asks where they are. Huida calmly explains that the place is sponsored by his clan and that it is his favorite spot. Without hesitation, he removes his shoes and steps into the ash, explaining that the wall is low, so a lot of volcanic ash gathers there. Moreover, if someone steps on it with bare feet, it feels like walking on clouds. Although she initially refuses, saying she is fine, he insists and points out that she has been tense ever since she arrived in the underworld. As a result, she finally agrees and removes her shoes, saying she will only try a little. As she steps into it, she is surprised by how soft it feels, and at the same time, she realizes it has been a while since she last experienced something like this. However, just as the moment becomes peaceful, he suddenly kicks ash toward her. She protests, but he continues, encouraging her to enjoy it. Eventually, she fights back, throws ash at him, then apologizes, saying that was why she warned him. He casually replies that it is fine, assuming she could not tolerate it, while she quietly thinks he looks handsome and even laughs. After that playful moment, they sit together on the fence. He asks if she likes it, then casually reveals that this is actually the room she will be staying in. She is surprised and asks if she was not supposed to share a room with him. He explains that his own room is right next to hers, and that there is a small side door connecting both rooms, so they are almost together anyway. He even jokes about his appearance, adding that since she is afraid of men, there is no way she would feel comfortable sharing a room with him, so this arrangement is better and will not burden her. He reminds her that the house is large with many rooms and encourages her to rest well. She thanks him. Later that night, Lord Huida walks down the hallway, and suddenly Soho is kneeling before him. When he asks what is going on, the boy reveals that he has finally found that person. In the next scene, Hyojo and Yeonwoo ride together in a chariot, and soon, it comes to a stop. As she looks ahead, she realizes the place is Janggong's castle, and immediately it becomes clear that this is the very day she might see Hyojo. The mere thought of him makes her feel dizzy. He notices right away and asks if she is okay. She quickly apologizes and explains that she just felt nauseous for a moment. However, he reminds her that he made a promise not to allow anything to torment her. As he says this, he moves a little closer, yet she turns her face away and insists she is fine. She has already made a promise to herself that she will never be afraid because of Hyojo again, even though the situation is frightening. After that, she walks toward the door, leaving him slightly confused, then asks if they should go in. He agrees. As they step forward, everything inside the palace remains exactly the same, from the structure to the placement of every item, which pulls her into a trance-like state. Suddenly, she imagines Hyojo right behind her, whispering that she has finally arrived while holding her neck. The thought makes her tremble, so she grips the hem of Huida's clothes for support. Although he notices, he continues forward and calls out loudly to Lord Janggong, announcing his arrival. A voice from inside invites them to enter, and this only makes her tremble more, because now she is certain that the moment the door opens, she will come face to face with her ex. But soon enough, we can see that instead of Hyojo, it is Lord Janggong, the ruler of the underworld. He immediately looks at Yeonwoo and asks if she is Huida's lover, then asks for her name. She answers that she is Yeonwoo. He comments that Hyojo's hiding her away made it seem as though he intended to harm her by calling her here. Yeonwoo remains confused, wondering why Hyojo is not present, since in her past life he was always with Janggong. Huida quickly denies the claim, saying he never did such a thing. Lord Janggong then questions why it took him so long to come. Meanwhile, Yeonwoo keeps thinking that perhaps, in this life, she might not meet Hyojo at all. Janggong says he wanted to meet him face to face, and now that he has, he assumes he must be tired and should return home to rest. However, he turns to her and asks for a moment with Huida alone. She agrees, saying she will wait outside. As she leaves, Lord Janggong remarks that she is a pretty child and advises Huida to ensure she adapts well to the underworld. Then his tone shifts as he calls him Black Wolf, making it clear he knows why he summoned him. Outside, Yeonwoo reflects that for a moment she believed she would meet Hyojo today, but nothing happened. She begins to feel at ease, convincing herself that this must be the end, and if Lord Janggong does not call her again, she will have no reason to return. She leans against a tree, feeling relieved. However, just when it seems calm, she hears footsteps behind her. When she turns, she sees the same figure of Hyojo. Fear grips her again as she wonders why he is here. He speaks in a low voice, questioning what is so special about someone no different from the rest, even remarking that Huida seems wrapped around her fingers. As he steps closer, the tension rises sharply, giving us the moment where peace just disappears instantly. In the next moment, Yeonwoo quickly hides and covers her mouth as the person walks past. For a second, she lets out a small sigh of relief, thinking he is gone. However, just as she believes she is safe, a voice suddenly comes from behind, asking who she is. She trembles as she slowly turns around, only to see the same figure again. Her fear rises immediately because he looks exactly like Hyojo from her memories. As he questions her again, who she is and why she is hiding, she cannot respond. Her thoughts repeat the same realization. It is him. Noticing her reaction, he comments on how startled she looks and reaches out his hand to pull her up. Her mind races, wondering what he intends to do. At the same time, she remembers that reacting the way she did in the past will only make him more persistent. She decides to stay quiet and avoid drawing attention to herself, though remaining calm is far from easy. Even so, she slowly places her hand in his, trying not to provoke him. As he pulls her closer, almost into his arms, lifting her from the ground, the tension spikes. She finally breaks away, pulling her hand back and shouting for him to let go. Instead of reacting harshly, he simply apologizes lightly and remarks that when he saw her trembling, she reminded him of a small mouse, which made him want to play with her. Yeonwoo looks down at her bruised hand and feels disgusted, thinking he has always been like this, never caring about her feelings and doing whatever he wants. She speaks up, saying that playing such games with someone he just met is unpleasant. Instead of backing down, he calls her cheeky and questions whether she knows who she is speaking to. When he says her name, she gasps and quickly declares that she is Lord Huida's lover, warning him not to treat her carelessly. She adds that even basic manners should make that clear. He reacts with amusement, calling her that man's woman and saying she is quite fierce. He even comments that Huida must have enjoyed himself with her and mentions that he once thought the rumor about him being a eunuch was true, but now finds it disappointing that it is not. His words only make the situation worse. After that, he asks for her name, and when she says Yeonwoo, he replies that it is a lovely name, which only deepens the uneasy tension. Soon after, Sarim comes looking for her. Upon seeing Hyojo, she is visibly shocked. Yeonwoo asks for a moment alone, saying she needs to rest, while Sarim continues calling out to her. She explains that she feels weak and that her legs have lost their strength, then leaves. Not long after, Sarim finds her and asks what happened. Yeonwoo apologizes and asks if she can return home first. Sarim agrees. Later, when Huida returns, Sarim informs him of what happened. He immediately asks where Yeonwoo is, and she says she is resting. He praises her for handling things well and asks what happened, but Sarim admits she is unsure since Yeonwoo was alone. However, she adds that Yeonwoo seemed very terrified of something. Hearing this, he questions it, saying nothing unusual happened during the meeting with Lord Janggong. Sarim then mentions one more detail. That before Yeonwoo left the back garden, Lord Hyojo came out from the same area. Several hours earlier, we are taken aback as Lord Janggong calls Huida, the Black Wolf, closer and says he is always grateful to him and his brother, explaining that their presence maintains peace. Suddenly, he coughs harshly. Although Huida moves to assist him, he insists he is fine and says it is only natural with age, as his body no longer obeys him as it once did. He admits he feels the time is approaching to pass on his position. Huida immediately objects, insisting he is still strong. However, Janggong brings up Hyojo, saying it seems he still does not trust him, and even admits he feels the same despite being his father. Huida agrees, adding that the false family bond will end someday, because Hyojo will eventually discover they are not related by blood. That truth will surface the moment he becomes ruler. Janggong acknowledges this, admitting he has been careless. Changing the subject, he asks about Yeonwoo, wondering if she is the woman he has been searching for. Huida pauses, uncertain, and admits he is not sure. Even so, something deeper lingers in his thoughts. Janggong calmly says he hopes she is the one, and in silence, Huida finds himself hoping the same. The next day, Huida and Yeonwoo sit across from each other, sipping tea. She apologizes for leaving abruptly the previous night, explaining that she intended to wait but left without saying anything. He dismisses it, saying it is not a big deal. When he asks about her condition, noticing she still seems unwell, she struggles with how much she can reveal. Memories of Hyojo and her past lives surface, reminding her of everything she endured. She promised herself this life would be different, yet seeing him again brings back the same fear. She simply says she is tired. He encourages her to rest, showing concern that surprises her. Sarim announces that her bath is ready and will wait outside. As Yeonwoo carries her things, she reflects on how Huida does not seem suspicious, only genuinely worried. She quietly admires his kindness. Just as she is about to enter, she hears a voice from inside saying, "No extra help is needed." She looks up and is startled to see Huida in the bath. She quickly apologizes and turns to leave, but he stops her. In that moment, she notices how unexpectedly gentle he is, and the closeness leaves her uncertain, caught between embarrassment and trust. Huida holds Yeonwoo's hand and asks how many people are waiting outside. He explains that Sarim is not the type to make such a mistake, so this must have been intentional. Yeonwoo is confused at first, but after thinking about it, she agrees that it is unlikely to be an accident. He points out that if she leaves now, it may raise suspicion. Since things have already reached this point, he suggests she warm herself before leaving, adding that the decision is entirely hers. She is surprised, but eventually agrees. She steps into the bath, staying at one corner, careful and cautious. In her thoughts, she reminds herself not to act suspiciously. Even if their relationship is only a contract, they must appear convincing. Their eyes meet briefly, but she quickly looks away. He notices and comments on how openly she stares at him. Caught off guard, she apologizes. He tells her not to, saying it is his fault instead, then casually remarks that anyone would find it hard to look away from someone with such beauty. He then grows more serious and explains that when it comes to him, he does not want her to feel sorry about anything. She admits she feels strange and believes there are many things about her that could raise suspicion. He acknowledges this but says he does not want to pressure her. Instead, he will wait until she is ready to speak, until she no longer carries such sadness. Hearing this, she reflects deeply. The kinder he is, the more she feels like opening up about her past. At the same time, she becomes curious about him. Eventually, she quietly thanks him. Elsewhere, Hyojo sits alone, drinking tea, his thoughts lingering on Yeonwoo, the one he encountered earlier. Yeonwoo is being dressed as Sharon carefully adjusts her outfit and ties the corset behind her. While doing so, Sharon suddenly notices something on her shoulder blade and points it out, asking if it has always been there. This catches Yeonwoo off guard. She quickly thinks back and realizes it must be a bruise from when Hyojo held her, yet she denies it and says she does not have anything like that, adding that she must have bumped into something by accident. Trying to move past it, she calls Sarim and says she is curious about something. Sarim calmly tells her to feel at ease. Yeonwoo explains that she is only going to teach him how to play an instrument and wonders if she really has to dress this way. Sarim assures her that she must, explaining that in a relationship between a man and a woman, especially lovers, no one can predict what might happen in the end. She even adds that Yeonwoo will thank her later. Yeonwoo agrees, though a quiet hesitation remains. Earlier, while sitting outside together, Huida had asked her for a favor, admitting it might sound sudden. When she asked what he meant, he brought up the song, Untitled, explaining that he had not been able to stop thinking about it since he heard it. He then asked if she would be willing to teach him how to play it. Hearing this, Yeonwoo paused, wondering what that would be like. Later, Yeonwoo arrives, and Huida is informed of her presence. He turns and sees her standing before him, noticing how beautiful she looks. In his mind, he admits he expected nothing less. At the same time, Yeonwoo feels uneasy and avoids meeting his gaze. Soon, they sit together with the Gayagam. She explains that there is no sheet music and asks if he can follow by listening line by line. He agrees. As she begins to play, he watches closely and tries to follow her notes. The first sound moves her, bringing a small smile to her lips. As they continue, she comments that he is quite good, explaining that men are naturally stronger, so the sound differs from that of a female performer, yet his playing remains refined. He thanks her. She adds that he must be delicate and skilled at controlling his strength, which makes her pause, suddenly aware of her own thoughts. She quickly shifts the topic and asks if he enjoys exercising. He is confused at first, but she explains it relates to playing the instrument. Once he understands, he remarks that he thought she had become interested in him again, but she simply laughs it off. He explains that he does not follow a specific exercise routine, but practices horseback riding and archery when necessary. Then he asks something in return, what she likes. The question catches her off guard. After a moment, she answers that she likes the sky, especially the blue sky. He admits he wanted to get her a gift, but now it seems difficult. He then asks her to tell him about the upper grounds. She asks if he has heard of snow. He looks confused, so she explains it is something that falls from the sky, similar to ash but white and clean. She describes how it covers everything, creating a beautiful scene. Hearing this, he recalls that she mentioned it before and shares that when he was young, he once visited the upper grounds and saw snow for the first time. Before he can continue, Yeonwoo suddenly moves forward and jumps onto him, catching him off guard. In that moment, she urgently asks if he knows how to get to the upper grounds, revealing a sudden shift in her thoughts. Yeonwoo thinks deeply to herself that if she can somehow find a way to reach the upper ground, then perhaps she might be able to completely escape the terrible and suffocating connection she has with Hyojo, and in doing so, return to a life that feels peaceful, warm, and whole again. A life where she can exist happily with her family without fear, constantly lingering behind her. At that moment, Huida steadies her gently, lifting her slightly as if to ground her, and calmly urges her to relax, reminding her that she needs to slow down. His voice remains even and controlled as he explains that although he has been to the upper ground once before, it happened when he was very young, so young that his memories of it are unclear, fragmented, and incomplete. He continues by adding that even during that time, the situation had not been normal, because his guardian spirit had gone into a violent rampage after he was forcefully taken there, making the entire experience chaotic and difficult to recall properly. Hearing this, Yeonwoo is left standing in silence, her thoughts momentarily freezing as the weight of his words settles in. The small hope she had been holding on to begins to waver. Huida notices this shift immediately and apologizes in a quiet tone, explaining that he knows this is not the answer she was hoping to hear, and that he regrets not being able to provide her with something more helpful or reassuring. Without hesitation, she quickly shakes her head and responds that it is all right, insisting that there is no need for him to apologize, and that if anything, she should be the one apologizing instead. Her voice carries a softness, but beneath it, there is a faint trace of disappointment that she tries to suppress. He studies her for a moment before asking if she misses the upper ground so deeply that it affects her this much. However, he does not stop there, as he also reminds her, almost carefully, that the same place she longs for is also where her ex-husband exists. The mention of that fact lingers briefly in the air, but she deliberately chooses not to respond to that part. Instead, she admits honestly that she does miss the upper ground. She explains that it is the place where she truly belongs, the place where everything feels right to her. And more than anything, she simply wants to see the clear sky again, the kind of sky that stretches endlessly, untouched and bright. Huida listens without interruption, and after a brief pause, he lets out a small breath, saying that it seems he may have asked something too complicated without realizing it. He apologizes again, this time for being inconsiderate in bringing it up so lightly. Yeonwoo quickly reassures him once more, telling him that it is fine and that she was also at fault for how she reacted earlier. She acknowledges that he was only showing concern, and nothing more. He nods slightly, accepting her response before shifting his tone. There is something else he wants to address. His expression becomes more serious as he tells her that from now on, she must never go outside at night without him. Although she responds outwardly with agreement, nodding as if she fully understands and accepts his words, her thoughts tell a different story. Quietly, deep within herself, she decides that she does not intend to follow that instruction completely. He continues, explaining the reason behind his warning. Nighttime in the underworld is not the same as it is on the surface. When people die, their souls arrive there during the night, and these wandering souls are not always stable or harmless. Some of them, lost and confused, can pose a danger to the living. Because of this, there exists a being whose role is to guide them, a reaper. Yeonwoo listens carefully, nodding in understanding, though inside, she reflects on how strange it would seem if she revealed that she already knows all of this. Then, as if shifting the mood, Huida adds something else. He tells her that she will be able to visit her family that same day, explaining that the issue regarding their lodging has already been resolved. For a moment, she simply stares at him, processing his words before a genuine sense of happiness begins to spread across her expression. This time, her reaction is not forced or restrained. It is real. She expresses her gratitude sincerely, her voice lighter than before. He responds with a faint smile, saying that he prefers hearing that. She looks slightly surprised, and he explains that he likes it when she says thank you, adding that from now on, she should express gratitude like that instead of apologizing so often. She accepts this quietly, nodding as she takes in his words. Later, we see Yeonwoo speaking with Sarim in front of her family's place. She asks whether it will truly be all right for her to go alone, wondering if Sarim will have to wait for her for a long time. Sarim reassures her calmly, saying that there is no need to worry. She reminds her that this will be the first time she is seeing her family again since that day, encouraging her to take her time and be fully present with them. Yeonwoo thanks her, and Sarim mentions that she has other matters to attend to in the meantime. Yeonwoo agrees before heading off on her own. Soon after, there is a knock at the door. When it opens, Jae immediately recognizes her. Her reaction is immediate and full of energy as she calls out Yeonwoo's name and rushes forward to embrace her tightly. She comments excitedly on how successful Yeonwoo must be now, even pointing out how refined and expensive her clothes look. Without hesitation, she calls out to their parents, announcing her arrival. Her father appears, and the moment their eyes meet, there is a quiet pause before she greets him, saying it has been a long time. He responds with visible relief, saying that he has been worried about her all this time. She apologizes softly for causing that worry, but reassures him that she has been doing well. Then her mother steps out. She looks at Yeonwoo for a moment, almost as if confirming what she is seeing, before asking if it is truly her. Yeonwoo greets her as well. In that moment, there is a silence that lingers between them, a silence filled with everything that has happened, everything that has not been said, and everything that still remains unresolved beneath the surface. In a brief flashback, Sarim stands quietly beside Huida, maintaining her usual composed posture as he asks where Yeonwoo is at that moment. His tone is calm, yet there is a subtle expectation in his voice. Sarim responds respectfully, explaining that Yeonwoo is currently preparing to go out. Huida pauses for a short moment, as if considering something carefully before giving her a quiet instruction. He tells her to take care of a certain matter once they leave, though his words remain measured and indirect. Sarim lowers her head slightly in acknowledgement, accepting the task without further question. The scene shifts back to the present. Yeonwoo now sits at a table with her family. The atmosphere feels both familiar and distant at the same time, as though something invisible stands between them. Her father looks at her with concern that has clearly been building for a long time. He asks how she has been, his voice carrying genuine worry, as though he has been waiting for this moment to confirm her safety. She responds softly, apologizing once again for making them worry, while reassuring him that there was nothing serious to be concerned about. She explains that the man she encountered in the forest helped her significantly and appeared to be a good person. As she speaks, she keeps her tone steady, careful not to reveal too much. Her mother reaches out and takes her hand, her grip firm yet not harsh. She advises her not to trust people too easily, her words carrying a familiar sharpness, though not as severe as before. Then, in a slightly quieter tone, she apologizes for having raised her voice in the past. She continues, telling Yeonwoo that she must think carefully about everything moving forward, because none of them truly understand where they are or how long they will remain in this place. Yeonwoo nods in agreement, lowering her gaze slightly as she apologizes once more. Her mother exhales softly before thanking her. She says that from now on, as a family, they should share everything with one another. There should be no secrets between them anymore. Yeonwoo agrees again, her voice gentle, though something in her expression remains restrained. However, the atmosphere begins to shift. Her mother's attention moves to Yeonwoo's clothes. Her expression changes as she questions how she came to be dressed in such fine garments. There is dissatisfaction in her voice as she looks her over. Soon her words begin to carry a different tone, one that drifts toward complaint. She speaks about their current living conditions, about how difficult things have been, and about the lack of proper food. Seowoo quietly raises her hands, showing the blisters that have formed on her skin. She explains that she has been working in the fields, her voice small but honest. The sight alone says more than her words. The reality of the underworld becomes clearer in that moment. The air feels heavy, filled with smoke that never seems to fade. Above them, there is no clear blue sky, only a dull, suffocating atmosphere that weighs on everything. Despite all of this, Seowoo looks at Yeonwoo and asks if they can come live with her instead. Her voice carries a small hope, fragile and uncertain. Yeonwoo hesitates. Her thoughts begin to tangle as she tries to find the right answer. She admits that she cannot make such a decision on her own, her voice careful, almost apologetic. Before she can say anything further, her mother interrupts. She tells Seowoo not to place additional burdens on her sister, pointing out that Yeonwoo herself is still relying on someone else. Her tone becomes firm again, drawing a clear line. Then, almost immediately, her mother's expression softens. Her voice changes once more, becoming gentler, almost persuasive. She asks if Yeonwoo can bring something for them the next time she visits, explaining that their supplies are running low and that things have been very difficult. She suggests that Yeonwoo speak to the man who helped her, the one she described as kind, implying that he might be willing to provide assistance. At that moment, Yeonwoo finds herself unable to respond. Her mother pulls her into a tight embrace, apologizing for having to rely on her in this way. The weight of her words lingers heavily in the air. Around them, the others remain silent, as though they are all aware of what is happening but choose not to say anything. In the end, Yeonwoo slowly reassures her. She says that she understands and promises that she will speak to him. Even as she says it, she feels the burden settling deeper within her, heavier than before. Time passes and she prepares to leave. Her mother notices and asks why she is going so soon. Yeonwoo explains that someone is waiting for her, keeping her tone simple and direct. Her mother nods, accepting the explanation, but just as Yeonwoo begins to step away, she calls her back. She asks if she is forgetting something. Yeonwoo pauses, then returns. Without hesitation, she leans forward and hugs her mother. The embrace is quiet, but it carries a sense of obligation more than comfort. In that moment, her mother speaks softly, reminding her that she is the only one they can rely on. Yeonwoo closes her eyes briefly before responding that she will do her best. As she walks away, those words echo repeatedly in her mind. She tells herself that she must protect her family, no matter what it takes. At the same time, another thought rises within her, just as strong. She must also protect herself from Yeojo. Her steps continue forward, steady but heavy, until suddenly a hand grabs hers from behind and her thoughts break instantly. Yeonwoo turns quickly, her heart tightening in her chest from the sudden contact, only to see that it is Sarim. The tension that had gripped her just moments ago loosens almost immediately, replaced by a quiet sense of relief. Sarim looks at her carefully, her gaze observant and steady. She asks if something is wrong, noting that Yeonwoo's expression appears unsettled, almost frightened. Yeonwoo exhales slowly, as though releasing something she had been holding in for a while. She admits that she could not find Sarim earlier and wonders aloud if her expression had truly been that obvious. Sarim apologizes softly, explaining that she may not have noticed clearly at the time. After a brief pause, Sarim asks if she has eaten. The question seems simple, yet it catches Yeonwoo slightly off guard. She realizes then that she has not eaten anything. Sarim suggests going to a place she likes, a buchimgae restaurant. She mentions it casually, as though it is something she has already decided. Yeonwoo hesitates for a moment, unsure, but eventually nods with a small, polite smile. Without questioning it further, she agrees and follows Sarim. As they walk, Sarim suggests that they also take some time to look around the market afterward, adding that it might help Yeonwoo relax a little. Hearing this, Yeonwoo quietly wonders to herself when she ever mentioned liking buchimgae, but she chooses not to question it aloud. When they arrive, Sarim gives her a small warning, explaining that the place might feel chaotic and that she should not be too surprised by the atmosphere. Just as they are about to enter, Dee-hee appears. She greets them with a composed smile, her presence immediately shifting the atmosphere. Her eyes move toward Yeonwoo as she notes that she has come out alone today. Sarim explains briefly, keeping her response simple. Dee-hee then turns her attention fully to Yeonwoo, offering praise for her previous performance. She describes it as unique, something that stands apart. However, her words carry an undertone. She continues, mentioning that Huida tends to enjoy things that are new and different, but that his interest does not last long. She expresses a quiet hope that Yeonwoo will be able to hold his attention for as long as possible. The meaning behind her words does not go unnoticed. Soon after, she questions their choice of restaurant, subtly implying that such a place is not suitable for women of their status. Behind her, a few women let out small, amused laughs. Yeonwoo notices Sarim's reaction to this. Dee-hee offers to take them somewhere more appropriate, something more refined. However, Yeonwoo politely declines, explaining that she wants to try the place Sarim recommended. When Dee-hee shifts her tone slightly, directing a dismissive remark toward Sarim, Yeonwoo steps in and stops it. She makes it clear, without raising her voice, that Sarim is important to her. That single statement changes the atmosphere again. Later, after they finish eating, Yeonwoo expresses how much she enjoyed the food, saying it sincerely. Sarim remains quiet for a moment before finally speaking. She thanks Yeonwoo, explaining that she is grateful for the way she handled things earlier. Yeonwoo reassures her that it was not done out of obligation, but because she genuinely meant it. Hearing that, Sarim suddenly steps forward and hugs her tightly. The gesture is unexpected but filled with emotion. She promises her loyalty in that moment, her voice firm despite its softness. However, the moment does not last long. A group of men approaches, their presence immediately disrupting the calm. Their words are inappropriate, careless, and intrusive. Sarim attempts to leave with Yeonwoo, hoping to avoid unnecessary trouble, but one of the men reaches out and grabs her. She cries out in pain as his grip tightens. Yeonwoo reacts instantly, raising her voice and demanding that he let go, her shock evident. The situation begins to escalate rapidly. Then, a figure wearing a silver mask suddenly appears. Everything stops. One of the men immediately steps forward, his expression filled with irritation and anger as he demands to know who the masked figure is. His voice is loud and aggressive, clearly expecting an answer. Another man, without hesitation, throws out an insult, calling him a bastard as he moves forward. He raises his fist, aiming to strike, demanding to know what he thinks he is doing interfering like this. However, his attack fails completely. He misses his target and loses his balance, falling straight to the ground in an embarrassing display. The situation shifts instantly. The rest of the men, angered and unwilling to back down, rush forward all at once. What follows is brief but decisive. The masked man moves with precision, his actions controlled and effortless. One by one, he subdues them without hesitation. In a matter of moments, the fight is over. The men lie on the ground, defeated. He looks at them calmly before questioning their actions, asking how they can move around in groups like this just to harass a woman, and whether they feel no sense of shame for what they have done. His words are direct, leaving no room for argument. After that, he turns toward the women. Sarim recognizes him immediately. She calls out his name, Yuta. Yeonwoo expresses her gratitude, thanking him for stepping in when he did. Sarim lowers her head respectfully, acknowledging him and noting that it has been a long time since they last saw each other. Yeonwoo looks between them, surprised that Sarim knows him. Yuta responds casually, teasing Sarim by saying she is still as shameless as her master. Sarim accepts the remark without resistance, as though she is used to it. However, Yeonwoo feels a slight discomfort as she watches their exchange, unsure of how to interpret it. Yuta's attention shifts toward her. He checks whether she is hurt, his tone less teasing now. She reassures him that she is fine and thanks him once again. Without saying anything further, he suddenly leaps upward, landing on a rooftop with ease before disappearing from sight. The people around them begin whispering, confused by what they have just witnessed. Sarim turns to Yeonwoo, asking if she is all right, and acknowledging how shocking the situation must have been. When Yeonwoo asks who he is, Sarim explains that he is Yuta, Huida's twin brother. The revelation surprises her. Sarim continues, explaining that it is not unusual that she did not know, since he rarely appears and is almost always seen wearing a mask. She adds that the two brothers do not have a good relationship. Yeonwoo wonders briefly whether she should inform Huida about this encounter. Sarim reassures her that she will handle it and that there is no need for her to worry. Elsewhere, Dee-hee sits with members of her group. They speak among themselves, suggesting that Huida must be struggling and expressing disappointment that she cannot witness it directly. Dee-hee responds calmly, telling them not to be too harsh. She suggests that Yeonwoo likely does not know any better and adds that situations like this provide opportunities for people to learn. However, as she turns, she freezes. Yuta is standing right in front of her. She questions his presence, asking if he has something to say. Before she can react further, he strikes her down. The action is swift and unexpected. He warns her clearly, telling her never to lay a hand on that woman again. Dee-hee, shocked and angered, demands an explanation, asking who he is referring to and why she is being treated this way. He responds by pointing out details that are small but precise, making it clear that he knows exactly what she did. His warning is final. There will not be another chance. Despite this, she slowly smiles, her thoughts turning darker as she considers the situation from another angle. Meanwhile, back at the palace, Yeonwoo lies on the bed. She feels exhausted, even though she cannot fully explain why. After some time, she sits up. She begins to clean. For her, cleaning brings a sense of order. It helps her organize not just her surroundings, but also her thoughts. She moves quietly, focusing on each task. Sarim enters and questions what she is doing, surprised by how intensely she is cleaning. She attempts to take the broom from her. Yeonwoo insists that she enjoys it, calling it a habit of hers. Sarim eventually takes the broom anyway, though she still looks concerned. Yeonwoo reassures her once again, saying there is nothing to worry about. Sarim says she will return later. After she leaves, Yeonwoo continues. While cleaning, she notices a box placed high on a shelf. Curious, she reaches for it, carefully bringing it down. She opens it slowly. Inside, something valuable. She pauses, holding it gently, her thoughts settling for a moment as she reflects on how even the smallest things can bring a sense of comfort in the middle of everything. Yeonwoo picks up the box and notices a ribbon inside, something that looks like it belongs to a woman. She pauses, holding it for a moment before putting it back carefully, telling herself that it has nothing to do with her. As she closes the box, Huida appears behind her, arms crossed, watching silently. His sudden presence startles her, and she thinks to herself, "Oh my God, did he see me?" She quickly explains that she is cleaning, and he raises an eyebrow, suggesting that if she needed something done, she could have asked someone else. She shakes her head, insisting that she can manage on her own, and that cleaning is something she enjoys. He nods, accepting her answer, but asks her to make sure everything goes back in its place when she is done. Surprised, she listens carefully as he explains that the room used to belong to him, and although it feels a little embarrassing, he cannot feel at ease if things are left out of order. She agrees, but her mind drifts to the ribbon, remembering that he once mentioned it was the first time he brought a woman into this space. Her thoughts then turn to Yuta, whom she met earlier that day, and she shares this with him. He says he came to speak about the same matter, and she remarks that the two seem familiar, though he must have been wearing a mask. Huida listens and notes the similarity, and Yeonwoo wonders to herself whether siblings usually refer to one another as that man. She clarifies that she did not see his face, but only felt the same aura. Silence fills the room, and she feels awkward, questioning if she should have mentioned it at all. She decides to stand and tells him she will finish cleaning and return shortly. As she walks toward the basin to dump the water, he asks if she is going outside. She pauses and replies calmly, questioning if it matters, and he bends slightly to adjust her gown, reminding her of the many eyes outside. She thanks him quietly while he observes, noting that it is good she appears unhurt, and adding that over time, even Yuta might prove useful. Yeonwoo thinks firmly that she must never mention him again, and announces that she will really go now. Huida watches her leave and calls out, teasingly telling her to stop eavesdropping, revealing Sareem, who emerges blushing. He questions whether Sareem agrees with Yeonwoo's observation that Yuta and Huida resemble one another. She responds that it makes sense, given they are siblings, but he wonders aloud how Yuta, someone who dislikes resembling him and always hides behind a mask, would react if he heard this. Sareem remains composed, assuring him that he would understand, and he finally nods, agreeing that it is better not to bring Yuta up again. Later that evening, Yeonwoo and Huida sit together at a table, sharing a meal. He mentions that tonight's dinner was prepared by Sareem herself and insists that she must try it. He glances across at her and recalls that she enjoys spicy, oily food during the day and asks if she can still eat more. She nods, takes a bite, and tells him it is her favorite. He listens, noting he will remember this, and encourages her to relax and enjoy the long evening. Yeonwoo thinks back to a time when she used to drink alone after composing music, realizing how long it has been since she had a moment like this. She hums a few musical notes, and Huida observes, asking if it is a piece she enjoys. She happily admits it is, and though she apologizes for humming, he assures her it is not a problem, saying that a drink without elegance would feel empty. He picks up a daejum and begins playing a song as a special thanks for sharing the untitled piece before. Yeonwoo listens to the soft, flowing notes, thinking to herself that he not only plays the gyeogyam well, but also the daejum beautifully, understanding why people admire him. She notes in her mind that he enjoys trying new things but can get bored easily. In her thoughts, she accidentally voices a concern about him being too close to the gazangs, which makes him stop and ask how she could say that. Shocked, she covers her mouth, thinking she did not mean to speak aloud, and she quickly reassures him that she is not implying anything. Standing, she compliments him, acknowledging his kindness, skill with instruments, attentiveness, and care for her family. He watches her carefully as she speaks, and she feels a mixture of surprise and nervousness at her own words. She reflects in her mind on how much she is grateful to him, feeling the weight of the moment. Realizing the silence, he moves closer, his face approaching hers, and she looks up at him, caught in a moment that feels intimate and significant. He notices a small crumb on her lip. He carefully lifts it, holding it up for her to see. She frowns, thinking he could have just told her so she could have removed it herself, but she quickly adds a quiet thanks. He smirks slightly and notes that it has grown late, suggesting they get going. She agrees, walking away from the table, and he pauses, saying it is a shame to end the evening so soon. She nods, and he comments that whenever they are together, time seems to pass too quickly. She smiles and bids him a good night, walking to her room where she lays on her bed, feeling restless. Her thoughts swirl as she wonders what she should do, realizing she cannot sleep, thinking about how close he seemed and how much she wants to understand her own feelings. The next morning, Hyojo rides in his chariot toward Huida's place, recalling Lord Janggong mentioning that his birthday is coming soon, and suggesting he invite Huida to the banquet. He mutters in frustration, questioning why he must see him so early. And as he nears the palace gates, he encounters the guards. He demands the gates open, and though they bow and try to explain that Huida is not present, he interrupts, furious that they expect him to wait without knowing the master's return time. The guards quickly apologize, terrified, clarifying that they only meant to inform him, and he brushes it off. Then he asks if they serve anyone else in the household and instructs them to take him to Yeonwoo, showing his determination and impatience to see her. Yeonwoo wakes up to loud noises outside and blinks her sleepy eyes, wondering what could be going on. She calls for Sareem, asking if something is happening, rubbing her eyes as she struggles to wake up. Just then, a familiar voice breaks through the noise and Hyojo appears with a wide smile, saying he came to the right place. Shock runs through her as she sees him, and she wonders what he is doing here. Sareem cries out, urging her to go back inside, but he pushes forward and she is steadied by other maids, barely avoiding a fall. She confronts him, yelling that this is a house with a master, and that even though he is Lord Hyojo, he cannot just enter freely like this. He smiles, acknowledging that she recognizes him and rejoices at the reaction. She thinks to herself that he is acting like a creepy punk, questioning if it even matters at this point. She warns him again that this is Huida's house, and entering carelessly is against the rules. He places a hand on his head, muttering about Huida's strict laws, and mentions he heard she has recently come to the underworld, noting it is good that she already understands the rules. Then he takes her hand and compliments her skill on the gyeogyam, looking directly into her eyes as he mentions an upcoming banquet for his birthday, and asks her to perform there, emphasizing that it would be powerful. Yeonwoo's mind races as she recalls all the suffering he caused, remembering how he confined her and murdered everyone connected to her, including her family. She struggles to comprehend that after everything, he is still asking her to perform. She firmly tells him to let go of her hand, shocking him as he demands a response, insisting she cannot refuse a royal invitation. Frustration and anger surge through her, and she strikes him with a punch while repeating her demand to release her. The tension is electric, her courage and defiance clashing with his authority and arrogance, and it leaves the moment charged with unease and unresolved conflict. I think I would have reacted the same way. Standing up to someone so bold takes guts, watching her navigate the danger with both bravery and fury. The scene leaves a sense of chaos and intensity as Yeonwoo fights to assert her space and autonomy, and the power struggle between them feels immediate and dangerously alive. Hyojo stands silently, staring at her. He touches his cheek, shocked, and then bursts into loud laughter. He seems almost incredulous that she would dare touch him even after knowing who he is. Yeonwoo holds his hand carefully and admits it was a mistake, insisting it was unintentional, and points out that if he had released her hand when she asked, his injury wouldn't have happened. He listens and acknowledges that she has a point, then questions whether that justifies her cutting his face. She doesn't answer directly, but he feels that her words mean that because he was hurt, he cannot ignore her now. He closes the distance between them and pulls her into a hug. At that moment, he commands that the criminal who injured a member of the royal family be arrested immediately. Sareem protests, insisting it cannot happen, but the guards follow his orders, silencing her. Yeonwoo reflects, wondering if things had to end up this way. Just then, a voice interrupts from behind, and she turns to see Huida arriving in the scene. Hyojo immediately points out that her lover assaulted him and intends to take her to the palace for punishment. Huida, calm and measured, points out that before acting, some questions must be answered. Hyojo insists that nothing could be more serious than his injury, but Huida counters by asking why the private army entered his mansion without permission, why Hyojo is in the backyard instead of the living room, and why he grabbed her wrist carelessly. Hyojo becomes furious, grabbing Huida's cloak, calling him insolent, but Huida maintains his composure and emphasizes the trespass, the harassment, and the possibility of unsavory rumors. Hyojo, amused yet exasperated, remarks on Huida's sharp tongue and asks for clarification. Huida suggests that if Hyojo returns quickly, it will be as if nothing happened. Hyojo laughs, acknowledging the cleverness of the situation, and accepts, but only on one condition. At his birthday celebration, he wishes to hear Yeonwoo play the Gayagam. Huida agrees, and Hyojo finally decides to let the matter rest, at least for now. Huida hears Hyojo calling her Yeonwoo and immediately asks why he suddenly brings up the Gayagam. He explains that there is a rumor her performance is extraordinary, and he wants to witness it himself. Then he asks if Huida will allow her to come with him, and insists he is already looking forward to the banquet, imagining it will be wonderful. Huida corrects him, making it clear that she is not his servant but his lover, and that he only acts according to her wishes. Yeonwoo stands silently, thinking that she never wants to see Hyojo's face again. However, she realizes that refusing him now would create trouble for Huida, and she cannot allow that. She decides to attend the banquet, but she sets a condition that must be met first, which she shares with them. Later, Hyojo is seen walking through his palace early in the morning. Vivian, his fiancée, notices him and asks why he has returned so early, commenting that he seems to be in a good mood. As he walks past, she thinks to herself that he is a lunatic for acting this way again. Meanwhile, he glances up at a large portrait on the wall and mutters that he finally remembers where he saw her before. The thought lingers as he connects the memory to the face in front of him, revealing a mix of recognition and lingering irritation. Later that evening, Yeonwoo sits quietly, staring at the sky while thinking about the banquet. She wonders if it was a mistake to agree to go and perform in front of Hyojo, questioning whether she should have refused. As she shakes her head, a voice calls from behind, and Huida steps in carrying a bowl and some ointment. He places it carefully on her injury, noting that it is worse than he expected and warning that a bruise might remain despite the medicine. He adds that it is fortunate the injury ended up this way, considering how close he came to being dragged into trouble, and he apologizes for the earlier mistake and the commotion it caused. Yeonwoo reflects, admitting to herself that she may have acted out of fear, and tries to calm the tension between them. Huida then asks about her earlier encounter with Hyojo, pointing out that it was only the second time she met him. She pauses, trying to understand what he means, and he explains that after greeting Lord Janggong, he learned from Sareem about the day she returned early, and that Hyojo was seen near her at that time. He admits he did not press for details before because she seemed unwilling to talk, but now, seeing her injured, he feels he must ask. He questions if Hyojo was the reason for her pale and poor complexion that day. She looks down, avoiding eye contact, realizing he already knows everything, and confirms it quietly. Then she recounts everything that happened, explaining that he mocked her and that she did not mention it earlier because she never expected to meet him again, and certainly not to have him come all the way to her house. Yeonwoo sits quietly, thinking about the events that have unfolded. She reflects on how she thought that day with Hyojo would be the end, even knowing how reckless he is, and blames herself for underestimating him. She admits to Huida that after that day, things unfolded as he might have suspected. Hyojo forced her to perform, and when she refused, he tried to use violence. She explains that she tried to handle the situation on her own but regrets causing trouble for him as well. Huida feels anger rising at the thought of what she endured, but he remains calm, reassuring her that she should not apologize because the one who suffered most was her. He reminds her that he has already sworn to protect her no matter what happens, and she can rely on him. Standing, she thanks him sincerely while feeling a sense of relief and gratitude. She smiles, admitting that despite the danger, she managed to slap Hyojo hard, which felt satisfying. Huida congratulates her, but also admits that he feels he let Hyojo go too easily and considers going back to strike him again. Yeonwoo quickly holds him back, insisting that it is enough for now and that once this matter is resolved, Hyojo will no longer interfere. She recalls the condition she gave him. He must never come to Huida's house in that way again, and this will be the first and last banquet she attends. Hyojo agreed and swore to it. Huida warns her that she does not yet know how dangerous Hyojo truly is, describing him as malevolent and impulsive, able to change his attitude as quickly as flipping a coin, and that his words cannot be fully trusted. Holding her hand, he emphasizes that she should avoid him when possible, though he will always protect her. Yeonwoo then confides that Hyojo reminds her of her former husband in both appearance and personality, making him frightening. She recalls how her husband once locked her in a room out of jealousy, leaving her powerless while people around her suffered, but contrasts that with her current situation, noting that this time she is fighting back and honoring the promises she made. Huida listens, affirming that he understands, and reassuring her that they are fighting together. On the day of the banquet, Hyojo reflects to himself that everything is fine this time, and he is not facing the challenge alone, aware that the dynamics have shifted and that the events leading to this day have prepared them all for what is to come. Yeonwoo and Huida walk down the hallway, dressed elegantly, approaching the other end where Hyojo announces that his guest has arrived. Huida bows and extends his congratulations, which Hyojo brushes off as insincere and immediately asks if all preparations have been made, his expectations focused on her. She is given the gayagam and positions herself carefully to play, while he watches intently, thinking that she looks different now, as if her face could burst into tears at any moment. Yet her gaze is always fixed on him. He feels anticipation for the performance, curious to see how she will entertain him today. In a flashback, she remembers feeling troubled before that presentation, with Huida noticing her discomfort and asking if she is all right. She admits that it is not easy, no matter how resilient one is, to play for an undesired audience. But before she can continue, he interrupts, urging her to think of it as playing for his sake rather than Hyojo's. Back in the present, she reflects on when his words began to bring her comfort, and she begins by expressing gratitude for being invited to this special occasion. She dedicates the performance to Hyojo's birthday while acknowledging quietly to herself that the piece was originally meant for him with feelings of anger, asking silently that he not look at her in certain ways. As the notes flow, Hyojo is visibly troubled, sensing something in the music, while Vivian stands to support him, asking if he is all right, though he pushes her hand away, consumed by the conflicting emotions that her performance has stirred. Yeonwoo plays the gayagam steadily, focused despite the anger she senses directed at her from Hyojo. His gaze troubles him, and he scolds Vivian silently for her complexion as Yeonwoo continues playing without faltering. Once she finishes, she stands, and the room fills with applause. Later that evening, she is with Huida, and he praises her for performing so well, admitting that he had been worried, though it seems his concern was overthinking. She responds that she did as he asked, imagining she was playing for his sake, and his support gave her the courage to perform. She thanks him sincerely, but inwardly wonders if her words sounded like a confession, realizing that she only meant to convey that he has been a source of strength for her. Huida notices the cold wind and suggests she go inside, but she hesitates, aware that Hyojo could be nearby. Seeing the shift in her expression, he offers to fetch a quilt, and she agrees, sitting on the grass while reflecting that her words were not too burdensome. Suddenly, someone greets her from behind, and she turns, uncertain who it could be, but still returns the greeting. Before she can react further, the person pushes her to the ground, startling her as she asks what he is doing. He looks at her with fury and accuses her, asking if she is the bride of the god of death. The shock of his words and the sudden attack leave her frozen, And in that moment, the quiet evening with Huida is replaced by tension and danger, making her heart race as she struggles to process what has just happened. In the next moment, we watch Yanwoo trying to understand what Hyunsa just said about her being the god of death's bride, and confusion fills her as she questions his meaning. However, he does not hold back, as he accuses her of pretending, insisting that this must be the reason Huida accepted her. At the same time, he tightens his grip around her neck, and as a result, her breath begins to fail, causing her to struggle more and more. Furthermore, he continues, explaining that the plan is to use her to gain the full power of the god of death, and even suggests that Huida aims to take Lord Hyojo's place. Because of this, panic rises within her as she realizes she can no longer breathe properly, and the situation grows more dangerous with every passing second. Just when it seems like all hope is fading, everything changes suddenly, as a strong punch lands on Hyunsa's face and slams him to the ground, and we immediately see that it is Huida, who has arrived. In response, Hyunsa recognizes him and questions his actions, yet before anything else can happen, he casts a spell that strikes his hand, forcing him to pull back at once. Nevertheless, he begins to speak with a strange calm, revealing that his guardian spirit is a snake, and among them, the most dangerous is the pit viper. Moreover, he explains that once he uses that power, venom spreads through his whole body, and if the contact had lasted longer, the arm would have rotted away. As if that was not enough, he adds that the poison will soon spread unless the arm is cut off, and even mocks him by saying that the mighty black wolf is not so special. Yanwoo, on hearing this, is shocked, and Huida says, "This is nothing," cutting him by surprise and giving him a heavy punch to his face, which makes him fall to the ground. Then, before cutting off my arm, "I will just kill you." "Am I so incapable that I cannot even handle such trivial poison?" Huida says. This mysterious man now replies, "Very well. In that case, I shall enjoy watching you succumb to this drivel poison," he says as he summons another spell to blast him with it. "We will see what you have to say when that time comes." He charges towards Huida, and Huida reverses the action, pressing his neck to the ground. He tells him it is now over, and Youngwoo cries out to Lord Huida, but there is a tap on her shoulder from behind. It is Hyojo. He tells them to stop, and everyone turns to look at him. It seems that perhaps due to the joyous occasion, the snake spirit made quite a few mistakes while intoxicated. I will apologize on his behalf. It seems you two are quite startled, Yeonwoo. Hyojo says. Huida sees this and tries to return to his fight with the snake spirit, and Yeonwoo calls out to him, pleading with him to stop. At this rate, she didn't finish what she was saying, and Huida picks her up, carrying her in his arms. He turns to look at Hyojo and says, "You should take care of the incident that your subordinate caused today." And Hyojo gives an evil smile. "I will handle it myself," he says. Huida, carrying her, walks her into the door, and she looks up at him and calls out his name. Yeonwoo looks up at Huida and calls out to him, trying to assure him that she is fine. However, he only looks at her in silence, and as a result, she chooses not to speak again while he carries her toward the chariot. Meanwhile, Sarim stands nearby and welcomes him, and once inside, Yeonwoo explains everything that happened. Immediately, Sarim reacts with shock and anger, shouting as she questions if Hyunsa, the snake spirit, has lost his mind. Her anger grows stronger as she points out how unacceptable his actions are, especially on a day like this, on his master's birthday. And she adds that it is not only an insult to the ladies, but also a direct affront to Huida. However, Yeonwoo quietly questions if that is truly the reason, which makes Sarim clench her teeth and ask what she means. Yeonwoo then reflects that this is the first time she has seen him so angry, and begins to feel that she may have caused trouble. Hearing this, Sarim looks at her with disbelief and reminds her that she was in serious danger, adding that even she feels enraged, which surprises Yeonwoo. In her thoughts, she begins to admire Sarim, feeling as though her guardian spirit must be a dragon, and even praises her strength and presence, almost like she has a rare ability. As the conversation continues, Sarim openly states that she dislikes anyone whose guardian spirit is a snake and admits she never liked Hyunsa from the beginning, especially when he caused trouble as Hyojo's aide. Hearing this, Yeonwoo recalls what Hyunsa said earlier, calling her the bride of the god of death. Yet she hesitates at first, and almost keeps it to herself, but eventually brings it up, admitting that he said something strange to her. This catches Sarim off guard, and Yeonwoo, still confused, asks what it means to be the bride of the god of death. However, Sarim chooses to remain silent for the moment, which only deepens the mystery. That silence says more than any answer could. At the same time, the scene shifts back to Hyojo's palace, where Hyunsa is seen in pain, frustrated and angry as he curses Hyojo, complaining that he was beaten so badly just for touching one woman, even though she is not his. As he struggles with the injuries and blood left on his body, we are taken into Hyunsa's thoughts as he recalls a past moment where Hyojo gave him only one warning. Back then, he pleaded for forgiveness, yet his plea was ignored, and he was firmly warned never to touch that woman again, being beaten up mercilessly. Now, in the present, He reflects on everything and begins to connect the dots, realizing that since even Hyojo is involved with that woman, the rumors must be true. Recently, stories have been spreading that the god of death who rules the underground night has a weakness. The rumor explains that during the day, when spirits cannot move freely, the god of death also cannot use his full power. As a result, if someone kills him during that time, they can take his power and become stronger. However, there is a condition, and he carefully thinks through it, recognizing that the only obstacle is the bride of the god of death. If the god of death sleeps with his bride, he can keep his power even during the day, meaning he will have no weakness at all. Therefore, Hyeonsa concludes that to defeat him, he must get to the bride first, before either Huida or Hyojo can claim her. And as his thoughts grow darker, he begins to imagine taking revenge, believing that after stripping the god of death of his power, he will repay the humiliation he suffered. Just as he sinks deeper into these thoughts, a voice suddenly cuts in from behind, pulling him back to reality. And when he turns, he sees Yuta standing there, which immediately fills him with fear. Confused and shaken, he questions what kind of being he is, but before he can understand the situation, Yuta brings up what happened earlier, accusing him of laying his hands on his woman, and draws his sword. Hyeonsa tries to deny it, but before he can finish, the blade pierces through his body, causing him to cry out for help. However, in a strange twist, when he touches his chest, he realizes that nothing has happened, even though he is certain he was stabbed. As confusion sets in, Yuta calmly looks at the sword and remarks that it is not the right one, explaining that this weapon cannot kill someone who is already dead. This revelation shocks Hyeonsa, leaving him questioning what that means. And as he looks closer, he sees Yuta casting a spell. At that moment, he recognizes the presence of the four spirits, and not just any spirits, but black ones, which makes him realize that this is not Huida, but the god of death himself. Then, with a cold shift in tone, Yuta entrusts him to the spirits, suggesting that if he is lucky, he might survive. But there is also the chance that he will beg to be killed instead, and as his expression darkens, the situation becomes even more terrifying. Yuta casts the spell on Hyeonsa, and immediately, Hyeonsa begins to scream, begging for mercy, admitting he was wrong and promising never to touch that woman again. Yet before he can finish his plea, he is completely consumed. Yuta remains standing there, watching everything with a calm and expressionless face, unaffected by the cries for help, and states that he should never have done it in the first place. The moment ends there, and the scene shifts back to Huida's mansion, where Huida arrives with Yeonwoo, and she expresses deep gratitude for being rescued, admitting that without him, she does not know what would have happened to her. However, before she can finish speaking, he suddenly pulls her into a hug. In that moment, she notices how hot his body feels, which immediately alarms her, and she calls out for Sarim to bring a doctor at once. However, Huida refuses firmly, pleading that no doctor should be called, insisting again and again that they must not call one, even as she tries to explain how serious his condition feels. As they move further inside, Huida lies down quietly, and Yeonwoo stays by his side watching over him closely. Sarim approaches and suggests that they will take care of him, encouraging Yeonwoo to rest as well, but she refuses, choosing to remain because she wants to, and seeing this, Sarim accepts her decision. She then instructs the other maids to return to their duties, reminding them that there is still work to be done, and also believes that Huida would prefer to be cared for by Yeonwoo. So she sends them away. Left alone with him, Yeonwoo dips a cloth into water and gently places it on his head, quietly scolding him for being reckless. She then takes his hand and presses a soft kiss against it, her emotions rising as she begins to speak about the fear of something bad happening to him because of her. But before she can finish, she suddenly feels movement. Huida's hand lifts slightly and brushes against her hair, bringing the moment to a quiet pause. As Huida regains consciousness, Yeonwoo immediately notices and asks if he is awake, explaining that she did not call a doctor because he asked her not to, yet she is still willing to call one if he is in pain. However, he stops her and instead focuses on her face, asking why she is crying as he gently wipes her tears, but she quickly denies it. He smiles softly and says he must have been mistaken, since he thought he saw tears in her eyes, and even admits that he was startled. Hearing this, Yeonwoo reflects that this is how he usually behaves. Soon after, he says he needs to rest, but before he can withdraw, Yeonwoo raises her voice and scolds him, telling him never to act so recklessly again, explaining how frightened she was when she thought something terrible had happened to him, repeating his own words back to him. In response, Huida admits that he felt the same way, explaining that in the moment he thought something had happened to her, he could see nothing at all. And even if he may have looked unsightly, he was still able to protect her. So he asks if he can at least be forgiven for that much. As the moment deepens, he pulls her closer, and they share a kiss. Overwhelmed, Yeonwoo admits that she likes him and asks if he feels the same, and he responds in a way that suggests she should already know his answer. As time passes, morning arrives, and Yeonwoo wakes up lying in bed, only to realize that she is in Huida's room. Startled, she sits up and questions how she ended up there, then begins to recall what happened the previous night, remembering that after taking care of him, they kissed, and she wonders if she fell asleep right after. However, as she looks around, she notices that he is not in the room and begins to question if he is already feeling better. Just then, she hears voices coming from outside. Sareem is speaking, explaining that she handled something as instructed earlier, and Huida acknowledges her effort. Hearing this, Yeonwoo realizes he is outside with her. Then Sareem brings up that Yeonwoo had asked about the bride of the god of death, and explains that she pretended not to know anything, asking what should be done next. Huida responds that it is not yet time and makes it clear that until he is certain about everything, nothing about this matter must reach Yeonwoo. He further adds that it would be troublesome if she were to leave before then. Upon hearing this, Yeonwoo is left in deep shock. Yeonwoo feels a chill of confusion as she processes what she just heard. Questions flood her mind, wondering why Huida speaks in such a strange way about her. Sareem reassures her that she will soon wake up, while Huida, opening the door, instructs her to watch over Yeonwoo closely and report every detail, no matter how small. Sareem agrees, attentive and obedient. As he looks at the door, Huida senses something unusual, and when asked if something is wrong, he dismisses it, claiming it is probably just the maids busy at this hour. Yeonwoo, however, cannot shake her thoughts, hurrying to a corner to sit and mull over his words. The god of death's bride. What could that possibly mean for her? She recalls Huida's earlier statements and wonders if she has misunderstood, questioning what he is hiding and what he seeks to confirm. Doubts gnaw at her as she reflects on the previous night, wondering if the mutual feelings she believed they shared could have been part of some larger deception. Her mind races, torn between hope and uncertainty. Suddenly, a voice from outside calls her, and she rises to open the door. Huida enters, asking when she arrived in her room. She hesitates, remembering that they had slept together in his room, and explains that when she woke, he was not there, and she did not want him to see her first thing in the morning. He listens with understanding, then expresses gratitude for her care, noting that she attended to him through the night. Yeonwoo stands silently, absorbing his words while her mind continues to swirl with questions about his intentions and the strange title he used. She feels a mixture of relief and lingering doubt, unsure of what lies ahead, but aware that Huida's attention remains firmly on her, signaling that the night's events have left an indelible mark on both of them. Huida raises his hand, showing how much it has healed, waving it in front of Yeonwoo's face as he acknowledges her care. She agrees, noting that he seems right, while he expresses that he owes her a great debt. Confused, she wonders if he truly does not remember, and he notices her expression, asking if she feels unwell. She reassures him that she is fine, only a little unfocused from the morning, and quickly shifts to ask if he is going somewhere. Noticing his dressed state, he explains that he has just returned from an early walk, enjoying the dawn, and she nods in understanding, warning him to be careful since his body may still have lingering effects from illness. Observing him closely, she begins to suspect that he may be hiding something, but realizes that, even if that is true, it does not change anything for her, because she has nowhere else to go. Suddenly, he notices a change in her expression and sees blood on her thumb. The memory of his words outside the door with Sareem strikes her, and she quickly pulls her hand away. Surprised, he lets it go, and she apologizes for being startled, while he casually shrugs, saying he was startled as well. He decides to take his leave, suggesting that she rest, and quietly closes the door behind him. Later, Yeonwoo sits alone on the balcony, reflecting on the morning's events. She thinks about how she shook off his hand without realizing it, and imagines how shocked he must have been. She reminds herself that, even if he is hiding something, she cannot do anything about it. The contract between them, she reasons, shows how far he is willing to go, even to the point of hurting himself. As her thoughts drift, something by her right foot catches her attention. A small fox appears, and she marvels at how it managed to get inside. Lifting it up, she realizes it is not a puppy as she initially thought, and she smiles at the unexpected visitor, holding the tiny fox gently in her hands while continuing to ponder the complicated bond she shares with Huida. Yeonwoo, as Sareem notices her and reacts with frustration, saying this strange situation is happening again, as she questions how many times such a mistake will continue. She moves forward and picks up the small creature, speaking as if it will forget everything later anyway. This confuses Yeonwoo, who wonders if she is talking to the puppy, but Sareem looks up and explains that the creature is actually Soho. This shocks her, and she asks in disbelief if the puppy is truly Soho. The explanation follows that his guardian spirit is still very young, so it sometimes changes form on its own. And moreover, it is not even a dog, but a wolf. In addition, she is advised to pretend not to know whenever she is around him, since he would feel embarrassed. And this makes the moment feel oddly light despite everything. Yeonwoo finds it interesting and reaches out to touch it, realizing it is her first time seeing a guardian spirit up close, and it looks no different from a normal animal. At the same time, she recalls that Lord Huida also has a wolf as his guardian spirit, which connects this moment back to him in a quiet way. As a result, her thoughts shift to the past, remembering when Huida once said that he had gone to the upper grounds as a child, but his guardian spirit went out of control, leading to him being dragged away. This memory leads her to ask Sarim if having a guardian spirit allows someone to go to the upper grounds. However, the answer is firm, saying that if such a way existed, everyone would have already left. Furthermore, it is explained that only in very rare cases do people reach the upper grounds and return, and even then, they do not know how it happened. Hearing this, Yeonwoo accepts it and continues to ask if anyone from the upper grounds has ever gained a guardian spirit. Sarim begins to answer but suddenly stops and instead questions why such a topic is being brought up. This shift creates tension, and although Yeonwoo feels confused, she is then asked if she wants to return to the upper grounds. At the same time, Sarim quietly thinks that things might become complicated if she leaves. Trying to avoid suspicion, Yeonwoo turns her head and explains that it is only simple curiosity. Even so, Sarim studies her expression and gently points out that she often tries to carry everything alone. Nevertheless, she reminds her that she is not alone because she has both her and Lord Huida by her side, encouraging her to speak up even if the matter seems small. Yeonwoo expresses her gratitude and agrees that she will rely on them more, and then, as the moment passes, the scene shifts elsewhere. We are now brought before Sewol, who plays the Gayagayam for Lord Hyojo, and although she finishes her performance, something feels off immediately. He looks at her and demands that she play again, which confuses her, as she believes she has just played the correct piece. However, he questions her sharply, pointing out that the song sounded different from the one he remembers, and orders her to start over from the beginning. She tries to explain herself, insisting she is certain, yet her words fall on deaf ears, and the command becomes harsher, pressing her to play at once while accusing her of calling him a liar. The pressure builds, and he gives a final warning that if she fails again, she will not survive. As a result, fear takes over her, and she trembles, looking toward Seolhung for help. At this point, we are drawn into Seolhung's thoughts, where she coldly reflects that the girl has led herself to this end, realizing that this situation is not truly about the song, but about something deeper. She understands that what he truly desires is not the music itself, but the woman who originally played it. And even more, he wishes to see her again. She recalls her earlier suspicion, now confirmed, and notes that he does not seem aware of his own feelings yet, which leads her to decide there is no need to act. Immediately after, the situation takes a dark turn as Sewol is killed, and despite the brutality, Seolhung smiles. This draws his attention, and he questions her expression. She quickly masks it, offering an apology and explaining that she could not help but smile at his dignified presence. Even so, he finds it unpleasant, and the moment closes with a clear command being given to bring the woman capable of playing the untitled piece, setting the stage for what is to come next. We return to Lord Huida's house, where Soho and Sarim stand before him and bow, asking if they were called. At the same time, Sarim keeps staring at Soho, which makes him question her behavior. She then remarks that he has returned to his original form and even comments that he looks pretty and especially adorable today, clearly annoying him. He responds that he cannot help it. Yet, before it can go further, Huida steps in and stops her from teasing him. Soon after, the focus shifts as he brings up Hyunsa, asking if they know what happened to him. In response, Soho explains that he was interrogated that day and released shortly after, but because Lord Hyojo personally handled it, he now seems mentally unstable from the after effects. This makes Huida pause and think deeply, realizing that someone like Hyojo, who never cared about others, is acting strangely when it comes to Milady, which leaves him feeling that something important is missing. As if that was not enough, Soho adds that after his release, Hyunsa has been saying strange things, including a claim that he met the god of death, and that the reason Huida is keeping a woman in his house is because she is the god of death's bride. This shocks him and fills him with anger, while Sarim also reacts in frustration, although she is quickly calmed down. However, the concern does not fade, as Sarim points out that if such a rumor spreads, Lady Yeonwoo will be in danger, and reminds them that they kept things hidden to avoid causing her unnecessary suffering if it turns out to be false. Huida then decides they should observe the situation for a while, believing that people will not take Hyunsa seriously. This leads to confusion, and Soho explains that no one listens to him anymore because he is no longer in his right mind. It is revealed that after leaving prison, his condition became disturbing, as he sometimes harms himself by hitting his head until he bleeds or scratching his body until his skin tears. And because of this, even his family could not bear to see him, so they tied him up and locked him away. Yet, on the rare moments he can speak clearly, he keeps repeating that he saw the god of death, the white god of death. As a result, Huida reveals the truth behind it, stating that this was done by Yuta, who gave his soul to the black spirits. When asked about this, he explains that the soul and body are meant to be one, separating only at death, but the black spirits defy this order, and whether one devours or is devoured, the result is always terrible. Because of this, Yeonso will never regain his sanity, and even what remains of him will soon go out of control, which is why giving a soul to a spirit is forbidden. Finally, when Soho questions how he is so sure Yuta is responsible, Huida explains that at dawn that day, he sensed a spirit where it should not have been, and since only the gods of death can control spirits, and he himself had collapsed from poison, it could only have been Yuta. As he reflects on this, a quiet frustration rises within him, questioning why such a dangerous act was done in the first place. In the morning, across the city, people pass around a growing rumor, each one adding more fear to it. Some question if it is true and wonder if even their master might be called to the palace soon. Just then, Danhui arrives, cutting through the noise and reminding them that the banquet is about to begin. However, her younger sister quickly brings up the rumor, explaining that at Lord Hyojo's castle, people who can play a song called Untitled are being searched for, yet none of those summoned have returned safely. This shocks her, and as she asks for clarity, a memory surfaces of Yeonwoo playing that same song before Lord Huida, making the connection feel too real. The others continue, mentioning that even Sewol, who had been gaining fame, went with excitement but returned as a corpse, which deepens the tension. As a result, frustration builds within her, as she reflects on everything that has been happening, blaming it all on the mysterious woman who suddenly appeared. Suddenly, the flow of conversation is interrupted when someone rushes in with news that the performance has been cancelled. This surprises everyone, and disappointment spreads, especially among those who had prepared to see Lord Huida. When asked for details, it is revealed that he has been injured, possibly during Lord Hyojo's birthday banquet, where a large fight broke out over his lover, and that he was even poisoned. Hearing this, she begins to connect everything, and anger rises as she concludes that he must have been hurt because of that woman. Without hesitation, she storms out, determined to see him herself, ignoring those who call after her. At the same time, we return to Lord Huida's house, where Yeonwoo stands quietly, looking up at the sky, until footsteps approach from behind. She turns and sees Danhui rushing toward her with clear anger. The moment quickly turns tense as accusations are thrown, blaming her for the harm done to him, questioning how she can remain so calm. Confused, she asks what she means, but the response only grows sharper, bringing up the rumor again and claiming that those summoned to play the Untitled song have all lost their lives. The words grow harsher, accusing her of charming men so easily, and even suggesting she should have been born as a Jixiang instead. She then questions how she even entered such a place, only to be met with a calm but firm reply that such titles mean nothing, and that barging in like this shows selfishness. The argument escalates further as her actions are called out, pointing out that this is not concern but anger being taken out on the wrong person. As if that was not enough, her idea of love is challenged, described as forceful and wrong, which only fuels her rage. Unable to accept it, she lashes out and strikes her, but the moment does not end there, as Yeonwoo immediately fights back with a punch, leaving her completely speechless and shifting the balance of the confrontation in an instant. Ms. Danhui falls to the ground, holding her face in shock, and yet her anger does not fade. She demands an answer, while Yeonwoo, still holding her wrist, questions her actions in return. The reason comes out in a rush of blame, as she insists everything is her fault, claiming her colleagues died and even Lord Huida was injured because of her. However, Yeonwoo does not accept this, and instead calmly points out the truth. The ones who went to the castle were summoned by someone else, ordered to play a song, and killed for failing to satisfy that person. Therefore, the blame makes no sense. As we follow this exchange, it becomes clear that the real reason behind the anger is not justice, but jealousy. And once this is exposed, Danhui admits it without hesitation. Just when it feels like the situation might settle, everything escalates again as she pulls out a hairpin and tries to stab her, driven by the thought that she should have been the one standing beside Lord Huida. However, the guards step in at once, blocking the attack and calling her out, warning her to stop before they summon him. At that point, Yeonwoo remains composed and asks her to leave, hoping they never meet under such circumstances again. Even then, the anger in Danhui does not disappear, and she trembles as she stands there. Soon after, as Yeonwoo walks inside, Sarim rushes to her side, worried and checking if she was hurt. At the same time, guilt fills her voice, as she apologizes for not being there at that moment, saying she failed to stay by her side and protect her. Even so, Yeonwoo reassures her, explaining that the situation was handled properly on her own. Hearing this, Sarim praises her, and the moment softens slightly. Then, curiosity shifts the focus as she asks about Lord Huida, and Sarim explains that he has stepped out of the compound for a while. However, something in her tone feels unclear, and Yeonwoo notices it, especially after hearing that the banquet was cancelled. When she asks again, the answer remains uncertain, and she learns that he may have gone anyway because of his role, although he plans to return early. As we stay with her thoughts, we see her quietly accept this. Yet she also reflects that there are many others around him, and Dan Hui is not the only one lingering. Even though she knows she cannot control his actions, she still wishes, just for today, things were different. As she touches her face, Sarim notices and asks if she is all right. But instead of explaining further, she simply apologizes and hurries back inside to rest, leaving behind a feeling that something is not quite right. Yeonwoo walks outside to Huida's favorite spot, her bare feet pressing into the ash as she begins kicking it absent-mindedly. She questions herself, trying to make sense of her emotions, and wonders what she is doing there. As she kicks, she reminds herself that Huida is simply doing his duty as the leader of the merchant group, and asks why that should bother her. She recalls her earlier words to Dan Hui, and admits quietly to herself that she didn't mean them as she said. Maybe Dan Hui wasn't the jealous one. Perhaps it was her. Her thoughts swirl as she continues, the ash scattering with each movement, when suddenly a voice calls behind her. She spins around in shock to see Lord Yuta standing there, asking if she is feeling any better. He mentions that he heard about the incident with Hyunsa, and she reassures him that she is fine, thanking him. Then he apologizes, saying that because of her, Lord Huida was seriously injured. Yeonwoo reassures him that there is no need to worry, though she catches herself thinking that no matter how strained their relationship is, that seems extreme. She starts to remind him that Huida is still his brother, but he interrupts, explaining that she doesn't need to worry because of their peculiar constitution. Even if injured, they recover faster than ordinary people, though the pain they feel is far more intense. He shows her his arm, and she finds it interesting, though she doubts him, and cautiously asks if such a constitution might cause total memory loss. He says no, and she smiles, admitting she asked a useless question. Turning her face away, she hears him continue, saying that sometimes the pain causes confusion, and there are moments when he forgets what he said. Her mind flashes back to that night, realizing it might explain why she remembered so little. Then he shifts the topic, noting that she still enjoys walking on ashes barefoot. She responds simply, saying there is no grand reason, that she does it because she wants to, and it makes her feel at ease. His words make her pause, and she questions him silently, thinking that he just acknowledged something personal. She turns to ask him if he really knew her before, and he says he is glad to see that she is okay, leaving her thoughts tangled between curiosity and surprise. The rumor continues to swirl at Miss Dan Hui's place, and gossip fills the room. People talk excitedly, wondering if the banquet will be held again, and whether that means Lord Huida has recovered. Some express that it will be wonderful just to see him again. Then the conversation turns to Miss Dan Hui herself, with whispers that she visited Lord Huida's home area and caused a commotion involving his lover. The comments are sharp, and she darkens at the insinuation. We are taken back in a flashback to a lonely moment when Yeonwoo sits by herself, crying and wishing to return home. She hears music and, curious, looks out the window to see a younger Dan Hui playing the gayagayam. Dan Hui notices her and asks why she is lingering there, suggesting that she might want to try playing music. Hesitant, Yeonwoo admits she dares to try, and Dan Hui begins teaching her. Through her guidance, Yeonwoo learns the basics of the gayagayam. Soon, Dan Hui applauds her, remarking that her performance is impressive, even if a little rustic, and that it is one of the most beautiful she has heard in a while. Recalling this, Dan Hui slams her hand on the table in frustration, enraged by the memory. Back at the banquet, maids welcome Lord Huida warmly, expressing how much they missed him and how glad they are to see him again. He notices that Miss Dan Hui is not present and asks about her. A maid begins to answer, but Dan Hui arrives just in time, apologizing for her lateness with a composed smile. As they sit down to have their meal, Dan Hui speaks first, telling Huida that she heard he had been very ill and could not bear her worry, so she went to visit his place. However, she met Lady Yeonwoo instead. She continues, admitting that perhaps she misspoke back then, and that her words had quickly upset Yeonwoo. Realizing she had hurt her feelings, she apologized to him as well. Pouring a drink into a cup for him, she says this is her apology and hands it to him. watching closely as he lifts it toward his mouth. Huida perceives that something about the drink is different from usual. He pauses, tracing the scent with suspicion, and drops his hand. He asks if something unusual was added, and she reacts in shock, trying to explain herself. Trembling, she bows and admits that she was wrong, apologizing profusely and promising never to do it again. He questions if she put poison in the drink, and she tries to deny it, stammering that it is ridiculous but cannot finish her sentence. Huida simply remarks that it does not matter. When has he ever refused a glass she offered? Since she prepared it, he should drink every last drop. Without hesitation, he lifts the cup and drinks it all. She cries out for him to stop, but he continues, leaving her in complete shock. Lord Huida finishes the cup and smashes it to the ground beside her, making her tremble even more. He rises and glares at her, his tone stern, telling her that she is no longer one of his people, and warning her never to appear before him or Lady Yanwu again. He means every word and walks away. She quickly reaches for his robe, calling out that she was wrong and begging for forgiveness. She promises to apologize to Yanwu personally and swears never to act so recklessly again, pleading that he not cast her aside. He pushes her hand away, but she continues, explaining that before meeting him, she could not even receive guests properly and was considered worthless, nearly abandoned even at the Giseng house. Memories flood back, showing a woman shouting at her younger self, demanding that she act properly and berating her for the mistakes she made despite her parents' sacrifices. Back in the present, tears streaming down her face, she tells Huida that starting from that lowest point, she survived a harsh life, surrounded by people who only brought her harm. Her brother thrived because of his status, and her parents sold her for money, leaving her to live only for revenge. Yet, he showed her that life still had value. She admits that if she could be with him, revenge would no longer matter, and that loving him seemed to be all that counted. She asks if all the time they spent together has only meant something to her. He turns to face her, looking her in the eye, and finally tells her that he never misled her. The only reason he brought her in was for her exceptional musical talents. Nothing more. Lord Huida tells her that as the master of this group, he recruits talented performers and has treated her according to her skills. He asks if he has ever treated her specially beyond that, and tells her that no matter what delusions she had in the past, they were of no concern to him. However, now that has changed. As he walks away, he orders her to pack her things immediately and leave, insisting that they never see each other again. Later that evening, riding his horse back, he feels his body burning. The substance Ms. Dan Hui put in the alcohol was not poison, he realizes, and yet the effect is undeniable. Back in his house, Yanwu arranges flowers in his room, telling herself to finish before he returns. She recalls the moment with Lord Yuta when she asked if he knew her before. He had not answered but said he would see her again soon. She wonders what that meant and whether Huida could be similar. The door suddenly opens, revealing him in pain. She rushes to him, asking if he is okay, and he questions why she's there. She explains that she wanted him to recover soon, so she left flowers and planned to go. She apologizes for entering without permission, but he raises his hand, telling her it is fine. Groaning, he insists that she leave immediately. She looks at him, acknowledges his words, and tells him to rest. She adds that banquets are all well and good, but he must think of his own health, warning that overindulgence will hinder his recovery. He tells her he is not drunk, but that he consumed a drug, a type that drives desire, and at that moment the need to hold her consumes him. Yanwu touches him lightly, asking if he is okay, confused by his earlier words. He looks at her and she presses him, saying she doesn't fully understand. He quickly removes his hand, turns his face away, and asks her to leave the room. She stands there, speechless, thinking to herself that he desires to hold her. She wonders if it is because of the drug and realizes that at today's banquet, many people must have wanted to be near him. Her thoughts trail off as he pulls her hand away. He tells her firmly that she must not provoke him further, that he is already losing control whenever he touches her, and pleads for her to leave the room. She watches him, understanding that even though he is struggling, she absolutely cannot be with him. She thinks that if she cannot, perhaps someone else could help him. He stops her thought immediately, holding her back, insisting that no one else would be of any use to him. She turns to ask why, and he explains that he cannot let anyone else be involved because to him, she is incredible and precious, especially when he is affected by this drug. Yeonmu studies him carefully, feeling her heart stir and realizes that she likes him. She presses him gently toward the bed and asks if he remembers the events from the night he became hot. He admits he cannot recall and asks what happened. She tells him that she confessed her feelings to him that night. He responds softly, calling out to her. She thinks to herself that even if their relationship is only contractual, even if he is using her, she cannot stop her heart from liking him. She leans closer, letting him know that he does not need to restrain himself, bringing her face near his. We watch as Yeonwoo leans in and kisses Huida. However, before things go any further, he stops her gently. Even though his feelings are clear, he chooses restraint, saying he wants to cherish her. He fears that if he embraces her while under the effect of the drug, she might misunderstand his true intentions later. Therefore, instead of acting on impulse, he asks her to simply stay by his side for the night, believing he can endure at least that much. In response, she agrees, yet firmly reminds him that this time, he is not allowed to forget. As a result, the moment settles into something quiet yet meaningful, where both choose presence over haste. Then, in the morning, we see Yeonwoo wake up in Lord Huida's room. She looks around and notices he is not beside her, which causes a brief moment of confusion. Just then, his voice comes from the corner, asking if she slept well. Relieved, she confirms that she did and quickly shifts her concern to him, noting that he seems much better. He admits that he is fine now, though he feels a bit embarrassed, as he believes he has only shown her his weak sides recently. However, she denies that, explaining that there were reasons for everything that happened. Even so, as she reflects on the night before, her expression darkens, realizing he might have forgotten again. Noticing this change, he gently lifts her chin and reassures her that this time is different, that he has not forgotten. This surprises her deeply, and as she processes it, he takes her hand and looks into her eyes. Rather than continuing with a false relationship, he asks if she would like to become real lovers. In that moment, without hesitation, she accepts. And just like that, what once began as a contract begins to turn into something real. Rain begins to fall, and Yeonwoo notices it at once, stretching her hand out as she wonders why it starts so suddenly. At the same time, her thoughts drift to Lord Huida, and she worries if he has been caught in the rain after leaving. Before that, he had explained that although he wished to stay with her all day, he still had duties at the merchant group, so he must step out for a while, and she accepted it calmly, asking him to go safely. However, he does not leave immediately, and instead keeps looking at her, which makes her pause and question him. In response, he admits that if he leaves now, he will not see her again until dinner, and as a result, he hints that she is forgetting something. This causes her to think for a moment before she rises on her toes and gently kisses his cheek, sending him off. Because of that, we see her heart fill with joy, as she realizes she has truly become his lover, and she begins to wonder if she should even go out later with an umbrella to meet him when he returns. However, just when it seems like everything is peaceful, a voice suddenly breaks in from behind, and she turns in shock to see Lord Utah standing in the rain, completely drenched. She becomes concerned at once and points out that he might fall sick, while also explaining that Lord Huida has already left not long ago. Nevertheless, he makes it clear that he did not come to see him, but rather came only for her, which confuses her deeply. As a result, she gathers her thoughts and questions him directly, recalling how he has appeared and disappeared without clear answers each time. Therefore, she presses him firmly this time, asking if he knew her even before they first met at the market. Yet instead of answering directly, he shifts the focus by asking if she trusts that fellow, which leaves her puzzled as she tries to understand who he means. Because of that, she urges him not to avoid the question and demands a clear answer, and just when we think he might finally explain, he drops a shocking truth, revealing that the man she trusts is deceiving her. Yeonwoo freezes in shock as Lord Utah's words sink in. She recalls the time she had eavesdropped on Huida and Sarim when they told her she should not know what they were discussing. Her mind races, thinking that perhaps Utah is referring to that situation, and she calls out to him, demanding to know what he really knows. Yet he stays silent, and she grows frustrated, realizing he is doing it again and refusing to answer. In anger, she raises her voice, questioning how he could expect her to trust him if he keeps withholding the truth, and what his intentions are behind revealing such a thing. Despite her outburst, he remains calm, admitting that it might be confusing but urging her to trust him. He thumps his chest and warns that the other person will only bring despair, and when he tries to continue, a sharp pain strikes his chest, forcing him to fall to one knee. She rushes to him, alarmed, asking if he is in pain, and he looks at her, placing his hand over her head to shield her from the rain. Despite his discomfort, he tells her to go back inside quickly, leaving immediately without answering her calls to wait, and she watches him go, unsettled. As she walks back, she recalls his warning, feeling the weight of his words. When she returns, Sarim greets her from outside and hands over a message from a visitor. She opens it and is immediately shocked to learn that her mother has supposedly collapsed. Panicked, she calls out for help, asking for a physician, while Sarim urges her to calm down and leave immediately, promising to summon medical help. Yeonwoo thanks her and hurries off. Bursting into the house, she calls out for her mother and finds her younger sister Seowoo, who greets her warmly and remarks on how long it has been since they last met. Alarmed, she asks about her mother's condition, only to be told that the illness was a lie, meant to lure her home since she had not contacted them. Anger flares within her as she pushes her sister, scolding her for such a reckless trick. but Seo-woo protests, saying she acted only because she hoped Yeonwoo would come if she lied. Before the tension can escalate further, their mother's voice calls out, questioning the noise, and Seo-woo shrieks in response. Yeonwoo turns toward her, realizing that the family confrontation is far from over. Yeonwoo feels a wave of tension as her mother scolds her for fighting with Seo-woo after coming home for the first time in so long. Her sister rushes to their mother, holding her and trying to explain that it was only a small prank because she missed her so much, and that Yeonwoo reacted too seriously. Despite the apology, she refuses to accept it, insisting that lying about their mother's collapse was far beyond acceptable. Their mother intervenes, questioning Seo-woo and making her apologize properly, which she does. Then she turns to Yeonwoo, asking why she has not been in touch all this time, and if she understands why Seo-woo acted as she did. Yeonwoo calms herself and explains that her circumstances kept her away, and their mother acknowledges this, understanding the difficulty she must have faced in adjusting to her current life. She continues, pointing out that even with distance, she should have reached out to her family, which would not have been hard to do. Furthermore, she mentions the rumors about Yeonwoo being in a relationship with a highly influential man and questions why he has not assisted the family, asking if he is now more important than they are. Yeonwoo is stunned by the accusation and tries to explain, but their mother insists she should go, saying that she relied too much on her alone and apologizing for speaking so directly. She guides Yeonwoo to take Seo-woo inside, leaving her words hanging, firm but caring. As Yeonwoo closes the door behind them, her thoughts turn inward. Memories of her past life flash before her, recalling how her family perished at Hyojo's hands, a tragedy she feels responsible for. Survival has been her sole focus ever since, and she realizes that she has neglected her family despite always treasuring them in her heart. Questions haunt her. Has she truly considered their hardships or missed them at all? Has she allowed herself to live well while forgetting them entirely? Perhaps, just as her mother suggested, she has come to recognize their importance only now. She struggles to stay silent, overwhelmed by a mix of guilt, regret, and newfound understanding. Before she can fully process these thoughts, the door opens abruptly, snapping her attention back to the present, leaving her unsettled and bracing for whatever comes next. Just then, Sareem bursts through the door, her voice sharp as she confronts Yeonwoo's mother about blaming the young woman unfairly. She points out that when the news of illness came, the lady rushed immediately out of concern, proving her care and dedication. The mother, startled, looks at Sareem and asks her identity, and she explains that she is the maid who saved her daughter. The expression on the mother's face softens as she realizes her daughter has grown into someone remarkable, and she thanks the maid for looking after her. Yet, she warns that interfering in family matters in such a bold way is not appropriate, and asks her to leave. Yeonwoo quickly tries to explain that Sareem acted out of worry and concern, but the mother, turning her attention back to her, clarifies that although the doctor's visit was unnecessary, she herself had called for the physician, and there is no need for further defense. Understanding the point, she apologizes, acknowledging her own circumstances, and Yeonwoo nods in acceptance. The mother also offers a brief apology to Sareem for the harsh words, while the young woman clasps the maid's hand, signaling her gratitude. She then turns to Seo-woo, promising to be more attentive in the future and hoping there will be no more lies. She encourages her mother to rest, assuring her that she will manage things properly. Before leaving, Yeonwoo's mother smiles warmly and calls out, asking if she will give a hug after all the earlier tension. The young woman runs forward, embracing her tightly, a mix of relief and affection flowing between them. Sareem reminds her that the carriage is waiting, and she agrees, moving quickly to prepare. Meanwhile, Sareem hands over a package to the mother, explaining that it contains the gifts the lady had prepared for her family, but had forgotten to bring, taking the liberty of delivering them on her behalf. Yeonwoo feels a sense of peace as she takes her leave. The earlier tension eases, and her heart warms by reconciliation and the thoughtfulness of those around her. Yeonwoo watches intently as Sareem moves quickly, sensing something urgent, and tries to ask what she is doing, but the maid urges her to hurry. Meanwhile, Seo-woo. Inside the chariot, Yeonwoo asks Sareem about her earlier actions, noticing things like the diary given to her mother that she herself never prepared. Sareem tries to play it down, explaining that the diaries were hers, meant to help preserve her dignity, and apologizes if she overstepped. Yeonwoo reassures her, saying there is nothing to apologize for, and even admits that she should be the one saying sorry for earlier misunderstandings. Sareem then gently asks if everything is well with her family, noticing some discomfort in her demeanor. Yeonwoo reflects, sharing that when she was younger, an accident she caused seriously injured her younger sibling, and since then, life at home has been difficult, with arguments and financial troubles making her feel guilty and responsible for her family's suffering. She confesses to the maid her lingering sorrow for her parents and Seo-woo, carrying a weight she has long held. Just when it seems the tension has eased, chaos erupts around them. Suddenly, arrows strike the guards surrounding the chariot, jolting everyone inside. Sareem immediately checks on Yeonwoo, making sure she is unharmed, her voice filled with concern. One of the guards opens the door to warn them that the area is dangerous and that they must leave quickly, but he is cut off as an arrow strikes him before he can finish. Yeonwoo freezes, shock gripping her as confusion and fear wash over her. She struggles to comprehend the sudden ambush, questioning what is happening and realizing that the journey has taken a perilous turn in an instant, leaving them vulnerable and in urgent need of action. The attack throws everything into chaos, forcing her to process both her family reflections and the immediate threat all at once. The scene escalates into chaos as the guards outside clash fiercely with the attackers, their swords flashing in defense. Yeonwoo watches in horror as one of the guards is struck down before her eyes, and a shiver of fear runs through her. She trembles uncontrollably, unable to take in the violence around her, until Saram grabs her hand firmly, urging her to regain focus. She tries to explain her fear, but the maid reminds her that they had already sensed an ambush and stresses that they must move quickly. Her attention shifts to Soho, who is bravely fighting the assailants to buy them time. Holding Yeonwoo's hand tightly, she guides her toward a safer spot, but their escape is abruptly blocked by a man standing in their path. He questions why they are in such a hurry and smiles, drawing a sword toward them, signaling that running is not an option. Sarim warns that it is dangerous, but he strikes her, sending her crashing to the ground. Yeonwoo looks down in panic, pleading silently for her to rise, but she does not respond. The man grabs her hair, forcing her to be silent and comply, but a sharp female voice interrupts, commanding him to release her. Yeonwoo lifts her eyes to see Ms. Dan-hui stepping forward, ready to intervene. Confused and desperate, she asks why, only to be met with cryptic words that deepen her confusion. Ms. Dan-hui ignores her questions, lunging forward and pressing her to the ground, pulling a knife toward her neck, telling her it will all end soon. Tears streak down Yeonwoo's face as her mind races. She recalls past events and her previous death, a strange calm washing over her despite the knife above her. She reasons that perhaps this is the end she was meant to meet, a quiet ending without ugliness or suffering for her family. Her heart aches, and yet she cannot help but cry, the emotions overwhelming her. As the knife descends, everything shifts abruptly. She opens her eyes to find herself in a different world, disoriented and bewildered. The surroundings are unfamiliar, leaving her questioning where she is and what has just occurred. The strangeness of the moment presses in, mingling relief with confusion as she tries to understand the sudden change in her reality. The terror, the fear, and the chaos are still fresh in her mind, but a new sense of uncertainty takes over, and she wonders silently how she ended up here and what will come next. Yeonwoo looks down at her hand, her mind racing as she tries to make sense of everything that has happened. She thinks about how every time she dies, she ends up back when she first fell into the underground, and a thought crosses her mind. Could this be the last time? Does that mean she no longer has to repeat her life over and over? A strange mix of relief and disbelief washes over her as she wonders if this is really the end, her thoughts lingering on Huida. Suddenly, a voice calls out from behind, questioning why she wears that expression and whether she is hoping for another chance. Shocked, she spins around to see a figure emerging from the shadows, and he introduces himself as Tamya, the being she has always called a god. She asks if she is dead now, and he responds that it is similar, but not quite, revealing the situation to her as she notices Ms. Dan-hui paused above her, knife raised. Tamya warns that if things continue as they are, she will soon die, and Yeonwoo asks why he appears only now, recalling how he had brought her back twice before when she had wanted to end her life. He simply tells her that he has one question. Does she truly want to end it like this? Confused, she admits the guilt she has carried all her life, the suffering she caused others, and how she once wished to die. But now things are different. She feels someone who cares for her, someone who gets angry and worries, and finally understands a glimpse of true happiness. Tears fall freely as she cries out that she wants to live, that she does not want it to end here. In response, Tamya touches her forehead with his finger and urges her to try one more time. Suddenly, she is thrust back into reality, facing Ms. Dan-hui, who is at the point of stabbing her. Blood splashes everywhere as Yeonwoo instinctively blocks the knife with her hand, the pain stabbing through her. Using the moment, she punches her attacker fiercely, forcing her to turn and glare in shock at the defiance. Rising to her feet, Yeonwoo seizes the knife, now in control, her mind sharp and alert, ready to face whatever comes next. The chaos of the ambush, the fear, and the past moments of death swirl in her mind, yet a newfound determination pulses through her. She understands that this moment is hers to fight, hers to survive, and hers to live. Ms. Dan-hui glares at Yeonwoo, her anger rising as she begins to transform into a fox, though the change is not complete. She jumps toward Yeonwoo, claiming that this time, escape will be impossible. Suddenly, we are taken to a flashback where a little girl and a man hold hands, walking through the snow. It is Yeonwoo and her father. He warns her that deep in the mountain, foxes sometimes appear, and she must never let go of his hand while they are walking. To keep her interested, he begins telling her about foxes, explaining that they have keen hearing and smell, move quickly, and hunt in a unique way. When they spot prey, they use their hind legs to leap into the air, throwing their whole body toward their target. Yeonwoo reflects that this lesson is the moment she uses now to defend herself, just when Ms. Dan-hui lunges at her. Back in the present, Yeonwoo stabs her attacker with the knife she holds, causing a groan of pain. Ms. Dan-hui commands her men to catch Yeonwoo immediately, but she runs for her life. The villain yells at her gang to find the woman, complaining that it is ridiculous for so many people to be unable to catch one severely injured woman. Suddenly, Ms. Dan-hui notices something and points the group in a direction, claiming to smell blood. She finds a piece of Yeonwoo's cloth and grows furious, thinking she is close to capturing her. She tears up more bloodied clothes to scatter, while the man accompanying her explains that the underground people have keen senses due to the guardian spirit, and they are clever. He asks what she will do next, and she snaps at him, saying she didn't hire him to praise her. He smiles, amused at the spectacle of her unraveling over a single woman. She cuts him short, offering all her wealth, 100 gold coins, to bring Yeonwoo to her alive or dead. The man assures her there is no doubt. Meanwhile, Yeonwoo sits alone, cold and weakened from blood loss, realizing she cannot hide much longer. She remembers the pieces of clothes she left as decoys in the forest and considers moving toward Lord Huida's place, hoping for help from patrolling guards. Determined, she rises, promising herself survival, saving her family, sharing a meal with Sarim, and living happily with Lord Huida. Suddenly, a fox appears, confirming her thoughts, and she is shocked. At that moment, the gang leader grabs her from behind, pinning her to the ground, demanding the promised money from Ms. Dan-hui in her fox form. She does not answer, but leaps at Yeonwoo. The girl closes her eyes, thinking this is the end, as blood splashes once more, her mind set on surviving at all costs. Yeonwoo closes her eyes, bracing herself for the worst, yet nothing happens for some time. Slowly, she opens them and sees a shocking scene unfolding. The fox has bitten someone's hand. Everyone freezes in surprise. The victim is Lord Huida. Miss Dan-hui, still in her fox form, steps back in shock as she recognizes him. Confused, a man nearby reacts to the sudden chaos. Lord Huida, however, turns to him and delivers a heavy punch, warning him sharply not to appear before his eyes again. The fox, startled by the intensity of the moment, runs away immediately. Lord Huida commands the others to chase her, while telling 2 of the men to stay and handle the immediate situation. In the next moment, Huida approaches Yeonwoo, holding her carefully to help her stand. She feels a mix of surprise, relief, and fear as she sees him. Concern quickly takes over as he notices her wound. He insists on treating it first, gently trying to unwrap what she has tied around her arm. She moans softly from the pain, yet thanks him for his help. As she struggles to comprehend how he arrived, he explains that he was on his way to meet her but smelled blood along the way. He confesses that he prayed endlessly for her safety. Before leaving, he promises to punish those who dared to harm her. He tells her to stay put while he rushes off, leaving her in the care of the guards. The scene lingers on her, both shaken and touched, as she watches him go, realizing how much he cares and how fiercely he protects her. We're taken deeper into the forest, where Miss Dan-hui is running desperately for her life. She counts the pursuers in her mind and realizes there are quite a few, yet none of them seem especially fast. She wonders if she could somehow escape, but every thought of running is blocked when she reaches the edge of a cliff. Looking down, she sees there is no way forward and turns back to face the approaching threat. Lord Huida stands there with the guards, and she senses that this is the end. She speaks to him with a mixture of resignation and despair, expressing a wish for him to end her miserable life. Huida, however, stops in his tracks, asking why he should grant such a wish. She expects contempt, yet he does not hate her. Instead, he explains that his anger is directed at the one who dared to harm Yeonwoo, the person he cherishes. He walks away, indifferent to her plea, leaving her shocked and dangerously close to the cliff's edge. Despite the danger, he does not look back, and she realizes how alone she has become in that moment. The next scene shifts to a quiet morning after the fight. Yeonwoo lies down, her eyes opening slowly to a blurry world. She struggles to understand where she is, and Huida's concerned voice calls out to her. Recognition floods her as she identifies him, and she sits up, eager for answers. She asks what happened, remembering the fight in the forest, while he gently warns her not to push herself too far. When she inquires about Sarim and Soho, he reassures her that both are safe and being treated in his house, which fills her with relief. He admits, however, that his fear of losing her never left him. She confesses that in the moments before she felt she might die, she thought of giving up, believing everything was her fault, and that her disappearance could solve the problems around her. Yet now, she declares that she will stop such thoughts and refuses to die hopelessly again. Huida is taken aback by her words, questioning what she means by like before. and she explains that this life she is living is not her first, revealing a depth to her experience that surprises him completely. The scene leaves us captivated by her resolve and the complex bond between them, as past fear meets the fragile hope of survival. At Lord Huida's house, Yeonwoo lies on the same bed with him, both facing each other in a quiet moment. He brings up the idea of visiting her family the next day, and she reacts with slight surprise, asking if he truly means tomorrow. He confirms it calmly, explaining that once they are married, her family becomes his as well, and as a future member of that family, it is only right to greet them first. This simple but sincere thought makes her smile, and she warmly agrees. As a result, the scene shifts to the next morning, where she notices him placing many items into his chariot. Curious, she asks about them, and he explains that he wants to make a good impression, even worrying that what he prepared might be too little. This causes her to react in disbelief, insisting that it is already more than enough. In response, she runs to him and hugs him from behind, yet he still considers adding more. However, she reassures him again, and he finally gives in, saying he will save the rest for another time. Soon after, they set off together and arrived at her mother's place. Meanwhile, Seo-woo steps forward to welcome them, and we sense her surprise as she looks at him, trying to take in the situation. He introduces himself properly and even invites her to call him brother-in-law, which she accepts with ease, even praising his looks in a playful way. He simply laughs it off, keeping the mood light. Just then, Yeonwoo's mother comes out and greets her warmly after the long journey, and they all move inside and sit at the dining table. As the conversation begins, her mother expresses deep emotions, reflecting on her daughter's nature, her kindness, her stubborn side, and the worries she once caused. She recalls that when she first arrived here, she insisted on following him, which caused great concern. However, seeing the bond they now share fills her with mixed feelings as the thought of marriage approaches. In response, he speaks with respect, admitting that his sudden appearance in the past must have caused worry, yet he believes their bond exists because of her. The conversation then turns serious as her mother brings up the issue of dowry, explaining their lack of means and her concern about not sending her daughter off properly. This shocks her, yet before the worry grows, he reassures her gently that having Yeonwoo is more than enough, removing the burden of such concerns. This touches her deeply, and she expresses gratitude, trusting him to take good care of her daughter. They continue talking for a long time, and eventually the visit comes to an end as Yeonwoo leaves together with him, marking a step forward in their shared path. We return with them to Lord Huida's home, and as soon as they arrive, he gently acknowledges her effort for the day and urges her to rest, adding that he will head upstairs. She responds with care, asking him to be careful, and as a result, they part ways for the moment. Meanwhile, as Yeonwoo walks back alone, a quiet thought fills her mind. She feels relieved that her family approves of him, yet at the same time, her chest feels strangely tight. This uneasy feeling lingers as she moves down the steps, and just when it seems like the day will end calmly, she looks up and sees Lord Yuta kneeling on one knee. The sight shocks her deeply, and confusion sets in as she wonders why he is here. She approaches him and asks what he is doing, yet before she can fully react, he suddenly grabs her hand. He brings up her marriage to Huida and questions if it is truly happening. She confirms it without hesitation and asks him to stop speaking about it, pulling her hand away. However, he continues, recalling his earlier warning that Huida is deceiving her. He reveals that Huida is the god of death, and that she is the destined bride, a messenger tied to him. This revelation shakes her completely, and her thoughts begin to race. She questions within herself if she is truly the bride of a god of death and struggles to understand what such a role even means. Meanwhile, his words continue to echo, explaining that such a bride is a special being, the only one who can free him from the chains of that fate, and therefore insists that she should not marry him, claiming she is being used. At this point, the tension rises sharply, and she can no longer hold back. She cries out for him to stop, making it clear that she will hear the truth directly from Huida. His words have already caused her to waver, and that alone makes her uneasy. She firmly states that this matter is between her and Huida, and that whatever truth exists, she will face it through him alone, urging him to say no more. Then, just when it seems the moment cannot grow heavier, Lord Yuta slowly removes his mask. He speaks of the day she took her own life, revealing that he begged again and again, countless times, wishing that even if he died, he could meet her once more. This confession leaves her in complete shock as she sees his face, and everything she thought she understood begins to break apart. We remain with Yeonwoo as her thoughts begin to spin, and she cannot ignore what she is seeing. Even if Lord Yuta and Lord Huida are said to be twins, she cannot understand how he looks so much like him. At the same time, his earlier words echo in her mind, and she starts to question them deeply. She recalls a moment from the past, thinking that someone was crying back then, and she begins to wonder if it was him. Just then, he suddenly coughs up blood, and this shocks her. She quickly calls out to him in concern and suggests calling a physician, yet he calmly wipes the blood away and continues speaking. He recalls her past, explaining how, when she first came to the afterlife, she wandered around, looked at the underground flowers, and liked stepping on beds barefoot. He reminds her that she once said she liked the afterlife, until she was locked away in Hyojo's palace. Hearing this, she is shaken and begins to suspect the truth. She cries out, questioning if he truly knows who she was back then. He admits that all he could do was watch and express regret. As a result, her emotions break free, and she bursts into tears. He gently reassures her that it is all right to cry, since she could not do so back then. He almost reaches out to comfort her, yet stops himself and pulls back, choosing to keep his distance. Even so, he expresses a wish for her to be happy in this life, yet insists that Huida cannot give her that happiness because of who he is. Meanwhile, she steadies herself and responds, showing that she now understands his words a little. She recognizes his concern, yet still chooses to stay by Huida's side. She admits that she feels uneasy, as spending a lifetime together is not simple. However, she accepts that even if she becomes unhappy, it will be enough as long as she is with him. Hearing this, he reacts with frustration, saying she does not understand what he is trying to say, and attempts to explain further. Suddenly, he feels a sharp pain in his chest and drops to one knee. This causes her concern to rise again, and she questions his condition, noticing that this has been happening since before. He brushes it off, saying it is simply a price to pay. She tries to understand what he means, yet he does not explain. Instead, he places his hand on her forehead and makes a quiet promise to protect her this time. Then, without another word, he lets go and turns away. She calls out, asking where he is going, yet he does not respond and leaves. As a result, she remains standing there, holding on to the hand he just touched, completely speechless. Later on, we find Yeonwoo sitting by the window, lost in deep thought as she reflects on everything Lord Yuta said. His words weigh heavily on her mind, and she struggles to make sense of them. Just then, a voice breaks the silence from the door, and before she can react, it opens. It is Lord Huida. She turns toward him and acknowledges his return, and almost immediately, he closes the distance and hugs her tightly. In that moment, he expresses a quiet feeling of comfort, explaining that knowing someone is waiting for him feels good. Furthermore, he shares that after visiting her home, something has been on his mind. This draws her attention, and she asks what he has been thinking about. He then brings up the idea of moving her family's home, recalling that, in the beginning, she chose to follow him to protect them. Because of that, he suggests that there is a place near his home where they could live. However, before he can even finish his thought, she reacts with emotion and hugs him, expressing how much that would mean to her. Meanwhile, as the moment softens, she gathers her thoughts and brings up something important she needs to say. He listens closely, giving her his full attention. She reveals that she met Lord Yuta earlier in the garden, where he had been waiting for her, and she shares that he tried to stop the marriage. This causes a shift in the mood, and he reacts with surprise, asking if those words were truly said. She continues, explaining that she was warned that marrying him would lead to unhappiness, and that the reason lies in his being the god of death while she is the bride meant for him. As a result, she makes her stance clear, expressing her desire to hear the truth directly from him, no matter what it may be. She questions his true reason for wanting to marry her, asking if what was said is real. For a brief moment, silence fills the space between them, and just when it feels like everything hangs in balance, he finally responds and confirms that the words are true. Remaining in that tense moment, as soon as Yeonwoo hears the truth from Lord Huida, shock takes over her completely. She begins to piece everything together, realizing that Lord Yuta's words were true after all. As a result, her thoughts turn to the reason behind everything, and she questions if it all comes down to her being the bride of the god of death. Furthermore, she recalls how he approached her right after her hair color changed, and this leads her to ask if that change is a sign of being the bride. He confirms it calmly, explaining that her white hair is the first proof, along with the mark on her shoulder blade. He admits that at the beginning, it was because of that sign that he brought her close, believing she was the destined bride. Until he was certain, he kept her near and chose to hide the truth. This causes confusion to rise within her, and she questions what he means by calling it a lie. In response, he begins to explain everything clearly, revealing that he is not a relative of the Grand Duke, the ruler of the underworld. Instead, the ruler and the god of death work together, each maintaining balance for their own benefit. The god of death takes care of wandering souls and keeps order, while the ruler protects his position. However, false rumors about the god of death's power began to spread, and because of that, he feared she could be put in danger. Meanwhile, as the truth unfolds, his tone softens, and he makes it clear that his feelings were never false. He recalls the first time he saw her, when she boldly offered herself and proposed a deal. At first, he saw her as reckless, yet as time passed, he came to see her true nature. He remembers how timid and unsure she often was, how easily she cried, and how he could not take his eyes off her. Even so, he reflects on how she always found the courage to step forward when it mattered most, no matter how painful the path became. Because of this, he admits that he has fallen deeply for her, and that alone is enough for him. As he says this, he gently holds her face, and in response, she moves forward and hugs him tightly without hesitation. She accepts everything, expressing that this is all she needs. He apologizes for the pain and confusion he caused, yet assures her once again that his feelings have always been real. In that moment, she believes him completely, and they hold each other tightly, finding comfort in the truth they now share. We are taken through Yeonwoo's thoughts as she reflects on how the wedding preparations move forward smoothly. Unlike before, when she only followed Hyojo's taste, this time feels different. Preparing every small detail together with Lord Huida brings her real joy, and even though she rarely sees him, each moment becomes precious, making her want to cherish everything without leaving anything undone. As a result, the next morning arrives, and she is still asleep when he enters quietly to wake her. He notices that she fell asleep while working on something the night before and gently touches her head. Meanwhile, Sarim steps out, saying she will gather the remaining accessories and asks her to rest. She sits up and lets out a soft sigh, thinking to herself that compared to Nana and him, Sarim seems even more excited about the wedding than both of them. Just then, a sudden noise comes from outside, drawing her attention. Curious, she goes to the window to check, and to her surprise, she sees him. She runs to him and asks when he arrived, and he explains that he was waiting for Sarim to leave. Without hesitation, he pulls her into a hug and admits that he proposed because he wanted to spend all day with her, yet they have barely had time together. He even calls it unfair, which makes her laugh. However, she reminds him that he was the one who wanted a grand ceremony, and she recalls how he once spoke of 5 bridal gowns, 30 musicians, and a grand wedding split into 3 parts. Even so, he does not deny it, yet insists that despite all that, he still wants more time with her. He holds her hand and suddenly suggests that they run away, and before she can fully react, they are already on their way. As a result, they head into the city, and when she asks where they are going, he simply asks her to trust him and follow. He assures her that taking one day off will not cause harm, and that he will deal with Sarim later. This carefree moment makes her laugh, and together they enjoy the day, buying small chops, picking up a book to read, and looking at jewelry, filling their time with simple happiness. As evening comes, he expresses gratitude, saying the day feels special because of her, and even suggests spending another day like this. However, she playfully refuses, saying that is a different matter. He teases her, claiming she cares more about Sarim, yet she gently counters by saying they will have plenty of time after the wedding. She speaks of traveling together as husband and wife, visiting many places, and this makes him give in, admitting he can never win against her. She becomes excited and holds his hand, then mentions a place she wants to show him, asking him to follow her this time. She leads him into the woods, explaining it is a place she loved and that few people visit, yet it is very beautiful. However, just when it feels like a peaceful moment, they both look up and see Hyojo, and shock immediately takes over the scene. Yeonwoo stands frozen as Hyojo appears before her, and she immediately asks how he ended up in this place. In her thoughts, she recalls that this is somewhere she used to visit often, yet she has only been there twice and once was with him. She wonders silently how he could have known about this hidden spot. Hyojo breaks the tension, mentioning that it is the first time he has come here, and of all people, it had to be her. He suggests they come closer to have a brief chat. Trembling, she reaches out, and he holds her hand tightly, acknowledging that they would not want to disturb her on such a rare day off. As they start to leave, he suddenly pauses and addresses Lord Yuta, asking if he is invited to the wedding since he has heard the news of her upcoming marriage. Yuta explains that the wedding will be kept as quiet as possible, with only her family invited. Hyojo responds thoughtfully, expressing that it is still a shame and suggesting that her father should be invited because he cherishes her deeply. Lord Huida agrees to this, showing consideration for her family. Hyojo continues, asking if there is anything she would like as a gift, and she replies that his kind words are enough. He insists, saying he still feels bad for not being able to repay her properly for a past performance, and emphasizes that more congratulations would bring her happiness. Yeonwoo reflects internally, noticing how different Hyojo seems from what she expected. Instead of anger, he shows care. She repeats that she does not want anything, and he confirms that he will respect her wishes, promising to do anything if it were her request. Finally, he calls out his congratulations on her wedding and walks away, leaving her with a mixture of relief and lingering surprise at his presence and thoughtful words. On the wedding day, everyone gathers around, and Sarim looks at Yeonwoo with admiration, saying how beautiful she looks. She adds that this is the most beautiful bride she has ever seen, and Yeonwoo thanks her, feeling a warmth spread through her heart. In her thoughts, she reflects that in just a short while, she will become a couple with Lord Huida, promising to spend her life with him. Although this will be her third wedding, the moment still feels unreal. She recalls the time when Hyojo looked different, somehow not like his usual self. She wonders if meeting Huida and making a different choice has finally severed the painful connection from the past. If that is the case, she thinks to herself, she will no longer be involved with Hyojo, and the feelings of hate will fade, allowing her to start a new life with Huida. Just then, he walks in and takes her hand, ready to begin their walk together, and in that moment, a voice is heard from outside, calling them to stop. The sudden interruption halts them instantly, filling the air with tension as both turn toward the direction of the voice, unsure of what will happen next. Suddenly, everyone turns and sees Lord Hyojo, and he announces that the king, his father, has just passed away. He says that until the funeral of the late king is completely over, all state and civil events, including weddings, as well as slaughtering and market fairs, are prohibited. He adds that everyone should express their condolences for the king's final journey. Yeonwoo feels a wave of destabilization rush over her, and the shock spreads through everyone present. As Hyojo walks down the long red VIP carpet, he passes by her mother, who instinctively holds her head, unsettled by his presence. Seowoo notices immediately and rushes to help, asking if she feels hot, but she remains silent, turning back to watch him walk away. Yeonwoo is frozen in place, speechless, and slowly moves toward the table, lost in thought, unable to speak until Lord Huida interrupts the silence. He says that he has safely escorted the family members, and she thanks him, but he insists there is no need for thanks, saying it is something he should have done. He apologizes, acknowledging that today should have been the happiest day for her. She reassures him that there is nothing to be sorry for, saying it was unavoidable. He lifts his hand, inviting her to place hers in it, and suggests taking a short walk together. She agrees, and they walk hand in hand. As they stroll, Yeonwoo reflects on the nature of this place, asking where the dead go from here since it is said to connect the world of the living and the dead. Lord Huida explains that she does not know the origin of the afterlife, and he begins to tell her. He says that this place is a space created randomly during the process of the gods dividing the world of the living and the dead, a place made by mistake and abandoned. Over time, people began falling from the world of the living, and as they lived and had children here, they created rules and built a society. As the population grew, a king emerged, similar to the world of the living, and the afterlife continued to exist. However, the place was still inherently abandoned by the gods. Originally, it served merely as a passageway for wandering souls, and as the population increased, many people were devoured by these souls, plunging the afterlife into chaos. The king of the underworld prayed earnestly to Tamya for protection, and whether answered directly or not, a guardian spirit imbued the people with the power to protect themselves. Among them, one person gained the power to command wandering souls, and that person became known as the God of Death. They sit together on the balcony as he explains all this, and Yeonwoo listens intently, absorbing the depth of the history and the weight of the world around her, feeling both awe and a quiet sense of understanding about the space that exists between life and death. Yeonwoo turns to Lord Huida, asking if he is the current God of Death, and he confirms, adding that Lord Yuta also holds the title. She wonders if it is possible for two gods of death to exist, and he admits he is unsure, suggesting that perhaps it is because they are twins. He confesses that he does not remember how he became a god of death, only that one day he realized it and accepted it as his destiny. He continues, saying that he does not know what happens on any given day, but he guides the souls afterward, assuming they find rest in the world beyond. Yeonwoo listens and begins to show subtle changes in expression, prompting him to ask if she is okay because she looks unwell. She admits that the timing of the Grand Duke's passing seems earlier than in her previous life, though her memory was unclear at the time due to imprisonment. He smiles reassuringly, rising to his feet, promising that everything will be fine and there is no need to worry. He reminds her that once the Grand Duke's funeral is over and things settle down, they can finally hold the ceremony. Yeonwoo agrees, comforted by his words, and they remain quietly together, holding hands and letting the calm settle around them. Meanwhile, at Lord Hyojo's residence, his secretary approaches him, warning that the late king's funeral has not even begun, and that at least some respect should be shown. The secretary suggests that coming after the enthronement ceremony would still be acceptable, but Hyojo stops abruptly and questions who decides what is too late, asserting that no one has authority over him. The secretary tries to clarify, but before he can finish, Hyojo slits his throat with the sword. A flashback appears of Hyojo with his father, who had told him that only he would be able to enter the record of everything in the afterlife when the time came. Reflecting on the past, Hyojo realizes that despite his father's power as king, he could not protect even one woman, and was abandoned by his own child. He vows that he will be different, determined to take everything he desires. Returning to the present, Hyojo looks around his surroundings, declaring that the place holds all the secrets of the afterlife. He searches carefully, eventually picking up a scroll and reading it. As he reads, a dark laugh escapes him, realizing that they dared to deceive him, and he begins to plot with a renewed, dangerous resolve. On the day of the funeral, processions move through the palace, and Yeonwoo is with Lord Huida, observing everything carefully. She notices how different everything feels and thinks that she used to see life in a simpler way. Moreover, Hyojo's behavior strikes her as unusual. Even though it is his father's funeral, he seems oddly excited, which makes her uneasy. Meanwhile, Lord Huida notices him standing nearby and quietly offers his deepest condolences. Hyojo responds with measured words, remarking on the passing of His Majesty and thanking everyone for attending despite the inconvenience. Huida reassures him that there is no need for thanks and that it is only natural. Then, Hyojo asks him to step aside for a private conversation. Huida narrows his eyes but complies, walking with him until they are alone. Once they are separated from the crowd, Huida asks what the matter is, and Hyojo reveals that he has discovered something interesting. He mentions that they say Huida is the god of death, and Huida realizes that Hyojo has finally learned his identity. Hyojo continues, expressing that he misunderstood him before and owes an apology, while also thanking him for watching over the afterlife by his father's side. He acknowledges that immortality must be a difficult life, and explains that he has been investigating the matter of the god of death's bride. Contrary to rumors, he says that if Huida finds the bride, he can transfer his power. For all the hardship endured, Hyojo promises to do everything in his power to help. Huida is left shocked, confused, and unsure how to respond. Yeonwoo, witnessing the exchange from nearby, wonders what is happening. Hyojo then steps away, giving a smile and saying, "Take care," leaving Huida to process the unexpected revelation as the ceremony continues around them. As the funeral proceeds, a moderator steps forward with a scroll, asking everyone to rise. He solemnly addresses the gathering, explaining that they have come together to honor the eternal rest of His Majesty, King Janggong, the very foundation of the underworld and the father of its people. He urges everyone to pay their respects, send him off with dignity, and pray for his everlasting peace. Meanwhile, Lord Huida and Yeonwoo begin to move through the crowd, but Hyojo watches them closely, observing their every action with a keen and calculating gaze. After the moderator finishes, Hyojo gives a speech, extending gratitude to the guests and expressing thanks to those who served the late king. He reflects on the king's lifelong love and dedication to the nation and its people, acknowledging the condolences shared by everyone. His closing words encourage all to return home safely, and as a result, everyone begins to leave. Huida tells Yeonwoo they should return as well, and she agrees. Just as they prepare to take their leave, someone calls out to Yeonwoo from the end of the room. She turns to see Seolhung, Hyojo's betrothed, introducing herself and acknowledging the recent wedding news. Seolhung expresses her desire to offer a small gift and asks for a few moments of Yeonwoo's time, explaining that it is more about getting to know her than the gift itself. Yeonwoo, taken aback, reflects that Seolhung has always been difficult to read, never openly fond of her or seeking favor from Hyojo. She decides this must be a polite gesture and responds that she will reach out soon, leaving Seolhung surprised yet pleased. Later at Hyojo's palace, he sits sipping tea when Seolhung enters. She explains that, as his future wife, it is natural for her to visit, particularly to be near him after the funeral. She offers to pour a drink and, as she does, mentions Yeonwoo, acknowledging Hyojo's desire and promising her support with a condition. The encounter leaves him momentarily taken aback, realizing that her intentions are layered and deliberate, yet her presence brings an unexpected shift in the tense atmosphere of the palace. The next day, Yeonwoo and Lord Huida are sharing a quiet moment, their hands intertwined as they enjoy a rare sense of peace. Just when it seems they might be alone in their world, Sareem interrupts them, announcing that a guest has arrived for Yeonwoo. Confused, she wonders if it could be Seowoo, though she doubts anyone would come searching for her at this hour. Stepping forward, the guest is revealed to be Seolhung. She greets both of them politely, and Huida immediately asks her what brings her here. She explains that she had some business, wanted to pay her respects, and also carries a small gift for Yeonwoo, asking if she could spare a moment to walk and talk. Yeonwoo hesitates, questioning the sincerity of Seolhung's words. Thoughts swirl in her mind, knowing the woman is Hyojo's fiancé, and wondering if it would truly be okay to spend time with her. She glances at Huida for reassurance. Huida notices her hesitation and whispers that Seolhung has a good reputation among the women of the underworld, and she would not act recklessly. He encourages her to take a short walk, suggesting that it would be fine to step away for a little while to refresh herself. Furthermore, he instructs her to take Sareem and Soho along, showing concern for her safety. Grateful, Yeonwoo quietly thanks him, feeling comforted by his support. Seolhung, noticing the gesture, smiles and expresses her appreciation, her demeanor calm and polite. As the three of them prepare to leave, the atmosphere is a mix of curiosity and cautious trust, leaving Yeonwoo to wonder about the intentions behind Seolhung's visit, while still feeling reassured by Huida's words. The scene carries a quiet tension and an unspoken understanding between them as they move forward into the day together. Yeonwoo is led to a place that instantly feels familiar, her heart recognizing it as her favorite spot. A waterfall cascades gracefully into a calm body of water below, and she can't help but exclaim at its beauty. Seolhung observes her reaction and says she knew Yeonwoo would like it too. As they settle by the water, she asks about the surface, wanting to hear from Yeonwoo what life is like above. Yeonwoo recalls her childhood, describing the vast blue sky and the times she hiked with her father. When her legs grew tired, he would carry her on his back, climbing steadily until they reached the peak, where the endless sky stretched before her. The memory of that view had sparked her love for the sky, a feeling she still treasures deeply. Seolhung listens and calls it a wonderful memory before asking if she is truly fine now. Yeonwoo hesitates, and the other gently points out that she can no longer see the sky she loves so much. She reassures her that it is okay because she has found something she loves even more. Seolhung chuckles softly, noting the closeness between her and Huida, which surprises Yeonwoo. Seolhung then opens up about her own life, revealing that she had been raised in the palace from a young age to prepare as an empress and had a carefully arranged engagement to Hyojo. Though palace life seemed glamorous, she confesses it was lonely, unlike Yeonwoo, who witnessed love and marriages around her. Hearing this, Yeonwoo realizes she had never known the struggles Seolhung faced. The other woman gestures to a gift, and Seolhee hands over a small box, revealing jewelry that Yeonwoo adores. Overwhelmed, she thanks her, unsure she deserves such a precious item. Seolhyung insists, holding her hand, and asks if they could be friends, noting the rarity of people she can truly confide in. Yeonwoo happily agrees, thinking that having Seolhyung as a friend would bring her more joy alongside Huida and Sarim. In a playful motion, Seolhyung suddenly pushes her into the water. Sarim and Soho rush to help, calling out in alarm, but Seolhyung grabs Yeonwoo's hand and pulls her out immediately. Once on dry ground, Yeonwoo confronts her, asking the meaning of this act. Seolhung explains that the jewelry was a gift as the future mistress of the palace, but the playful push is a gift to celebrate their new friendship. She warns Yeonwoo that Hyojo is targeting her and plans to eliminate Huida to claim her, and in exchange, she will share his scheme if Yeonwoo helps her secure her place. The moment blends trust, caution, and the budding bond between them, leaving Yeonwoo to absorb both the warmth of friendship and the weight of the warning she must now bear. Yeonwoo, shocked and frustrated, turns to Seolhung, questioning her reckless behavior and the offer she just made. She cannot understand how someone who just threw her into the water could ask her to risk Huida's life and strike a deal. The words tumble out as she struggles to contain her anger, demanding how she can trust someone so unpredictable. Seolhung, remaining calm, explains that she expected some misunderstanding since Yeonwoo came from the surface and doesn't yet know the ways of the underworld, especially the cruelty of Hyojo. She points out how terrifying it is that he is targeting her and urges her to think carefully about who would be most troublesome to him. Apologizing for the water incident, she adds that it was a test at Hyojo's request, meant to check if Yeonwoo has a mark behind her shoulder blade. Yeonwoo's mind races as she realizes the bitter truth, recalling that mark and understanding the implications of being the god of death's bride. Her expression hardens as she says nothing, absorbing the weight of the revelation. Observing her reaction, Seolhung senses that Yeonwoo understands the situation and allows her space, telling her it is fine if she does not want to share now. She mentions the upcoming celebration banquet for Hyojo's coronation, saying they will speak again there before turning to leave. Yet Yeonwoo, unable to hold back, speaks about Hyojo, revealing that she already knows and would have accepted the offer without needing the deception. Seolhung pauses, listening, and smiles, saying that perhaps the test was the quickest and most certain way to ensure understanding. She reassures her sincerely about wanting to be her friend, and departs, leaving Yeonwoo to reflect on the mixture of warning, trust, and the uneasy bond forming between them. The moment hangs heavily, blending caution with the budding potential of loyalty and strategy, while Yeonwoo realizes the gravity of what she must now consider in protecting Huida and herself. When they return, Lord Huida is waiting at the gate, standing with quiet attentiveness as he helps Yeonwoo descend from the chariot and asks if her journey was safe. She begins recounting everything that Seolhung told her, and he listens in disbelief, asking if she really said all that, while she confirms every word. She emphasizes that the most important thing is the proposal she received, and as they continue talking, she recounts past events and shares details of what has happened in the underworld since their last encounter. His shock deepens with each revelation, struggling to absorb the truth. He recalls the day of the funeral, when in a private meeting with Hyojo, he learned that he was the god of death. At that time, Hyojo also mentioned helping him find the god of death's bride, explaining the significance of the bride and the connection to freeing the god of death. Yeonwoo listens carefully, asking what being the god of death's bride truly means, and he admits he did not fully know at first. He explains that discovering the god of death's power brought an overwhelming need to find someone, and that only the bride can set the god of death free. When she asks what free means, he clarifies that the god of death would lose their power and become human again. Some may see it as a blessing to have eternal power, but to him it is a curse not to grow old with someone you love. Yeonwoo, processing this, asks how the bride can accomplish this, and he says she will understand naturally if she spends the night with the god of death. Realizing what he implies, she comprehends the full meaning of the role, and he warns that if Hyojo seeks to kill him, he will first try to take the god of death's power. For now, he decides to accept Seolhyung's proposal, knowing it is necessary. A few days later, Hyojo's coronation takes place at his palace, and at the end of the event, he announces a hunting banquet, revealing that he has released Ray Beast for the occasion. Yeonwoo locks eyes with Seolhyung, feeling the weight of unspoken understanding. As Huida climbs onto his horse to leave, she warns him to be careful, and he assures her, mentioning their meeting with Seolhyung later. Before departing, he kisses her forehead, reminding her to stay safe, and they share a brief, comforting hug. He watches from the corner as she insists he must leave, and then Sarim steps forward to escort her. As they walk, she instructs him to wait, pausing to gather her thoughts. She reflects on how this place still feels unpleasant, despite the passage of time. The haunting atmosphere is intensified by the presence of animals released for the hunting event, triggering memories of her past life and the hunting competition where she first encountered Hyojo. The flashback is abruptly interrupted when she sees a tiger and questions why it is so deep in the forest. Retracing her steps, she trips and falls to the ground, and as the tiger leaps toward her, she braces for impact, closing her eyes as blood splashes. Expecting Huida, she opens her eyes to find Hyojo standing over her instead, asking if she is hurt, leaving her heart pounding with fear and disbelief. As Lord Huida rides deeper into the forest, he notices someone standing quietly among the trees and realizes it is Lady Seolhyung. She greets him with calm composure, expressing surprise and pleasure at seeing him there. He asks whether she was supposed to meet Yeonwoo, and she replies that she is more curious about him than the young lady, and requests a moment to talk privately. Meanwhile, Yeonwoo is trying to process the recent events, her thoughts pulled back to Hyojo, standing nearby with the lifeless tiger. She reflects on the hunting ground, the smell of blood, and the red hair billowing in the wind, realizing how all their misfortune began right there. Her mind drifts into a flashback, remembering voices around her scolding someone, warning them not to overstep, and questioning their awareness of their surroundings. She recalls Seowoo wanting to intervene but being held back, and she stops her, telling her to stay calm. Seowoo resists quietly, complaining about the injustice while she urges her to move quickly before she loses patience. Leaning against a tree in that memory, she had marveled at how this place did not suit her, the sky gray and dark, feeling distant from the blue sky she once loved. Suddenly, a tiger charges toward her, shattering her thoughts. Instantly, it is killed, and opening her eyes, she finds Hyojo standing before her, concerned for her safety. She thanks him while wiping tears, reasoning that a beast meant for the banquet had strayed and could have caused serious harm. Yet she questions whether she truly owes him gratitude since he brought the dangerous animals and insisted on her presence despite her disinterest in hunting. Hyojo, unshaken, asks if she dislikes the banquet and offers to make it even more extravagant for her, inquiring whether the food suits her taste and encouraging her honesty. She expresses confusion, insisting that he seemed to dislike her since their first meeting, assuming the whole banquet was arranged to humble her. In response, he denies any ill intent, insisting he went to the effort simply to see her smile and ensure she was safe, and reminds her that, despite the danger, she could have faced serious trouble without his intervention. Meanwhile, Lady Seolhyung watches Huida carefully, the forest around them holding a quiet tension as past and present collide, leaving Yeonwoo torn between her memories, fears, and the complex relationships surrounding her. As Yeonwoo gathers her senses in the forest, she suddenly sees Hyojo kneeling on one knee before her, a calm and deliberate presence in the quiet of the trees. He asks how she ended up so deep in the forest, and she explains that she must have taken a wrong turn, apologizing for causing trouble. He dismisses her worry, insisting that it is fortunate he was nearby, and then repeats the same question he had asked before about how she plans to repay someone who saved her life. She is taken aback by the familiarity of his words and by the subtle concern he shows, as he notices her pale face and asks if she is hot. When she denies it, he observes that she must be shaken by what just happened, and offers his hand to help her stand. She pulls away slightly, expressing her disgust for places like this, for mingling with people who despise her, for pretending out of obligation, and for watching animals suffer for amusement. She recounts how the last banquet was her final one, declaring that they will not meet again, and thanking him simply for saving her life before walking away, leaving him speechless, lingering in silence as the forest absorbs the tension. Meanwhile, back at Hyojo's palace, a sudden commotion breaks the stillness as a messenger rushes in, calling out urgently for him. He turns, his curiosity piqued, asking what is happening. The messenger, trembling, explains that word has arrived from the outskirts, and Hyojo, sensing the importance, urges him to continue. The message is simple but earth-shattering. The bride of the god of death has been found. The news hangs in the air, heavy and full of consequence, as the palace feels the ripple of events that are about to unfold. The weight of destiny presses on Hyojo's mind, and in that moment, the forest, the banquet, and the paths that led Yeonwoo here all connect in a tense anticipation of what comes next. In the depths of the mountains, Lord Hyojo advances with his army toward a lady said to be the god of death's bride. She looks up, startled by his presence, and asks who he is and why he has come so far into these mountains. One of the guards immediately shouts at her, demanding respect before the ruler of the underworld. Instantly, she falls to the ground face down, apologizing for her rudeness and asking what brings such a noble person to this humble place. Hyojo explains that as he ascended to the throne, he studied the lineage of the god of death and learned that her late husband was the previous god. He adds that he could not ignore the sacrifices made to protect the underworld, and that the legend continues until the next god of death is chosen. She trembles as he tells her of the cruel fate awaiting the god until that time, forced to fight vengeful spirits for eternity with an immortal body. He declares that he has decided to support the god of death in every possible way, and for that, he needs her help. He asks if she knows how the god of death can be freed from this rule, and she responds that only the bride can do it, explaining that when the god of death and his bride share a bed, the power transfers to her, and then she must find the next god of death and pass it on for the original god to be free. Hyojo considers her words, confused yet intrigued, wondering if there could be another way. She trembles and admits she knows of no other method, and he questions how he is supposed to believe her. Then he challenges her, doubting whether she is truly the god of death's bride, recalling that the lineage records only mention her late husband. He says he tried to find the previous god, but he was already dead, so he came searching for her instead, wondering what to do if she proves useless. The lady, desperate, swears upon her late husband that she is telling the truth, prompting him to pause and consider her story. He asks if she remembers who received the god of death's power from her, and she recalls a very tall man with black hair and a wolf as his guardian spirit, though she cannot remember his name. Hyojo concludes that she may not be entirely useless after all, and commands the guards to restrain her, insisting that if she sleeps with the god of death again, they will discover if she retains any of her powers. She protests, claiming she has lost all her powers and is now an ordinary woman. Yet he insists that they cannot know until they try, leaving her to think that the king has truly lost his mind. The tension lingers as every word hangs heavy in the air, the weight of destiny and the potential of lost or regained power pressing on them both. Back at Lord Huida's place, a gift arrives from Lady Shilhung. He opens the letter and reads that last night, out-of-season white flowers bloomed beautifully in the palace, a rare flower that noble houses have searched for across generations. She urges him to come see them before they wither, and even sends a banquet. Yeonwoo, watching quietly, reasons that the banquet was sent along with the letter. As they examine the flowers, a strand of hair catches her eye. Huida picks it up and confirms that the white flowers are indeed out of season. He recalls Hyojo's words about helping the god of death find the bride, and a shock runs through him as he realizes the hair may belong to the god of death's bride. Yeonwoo's mind races with the thought that if the flowers truly mark the previous bride, then she is in the palace right now, and in danger. Huida reasons that they cannot let Hyojo discover this secret. They must get her out immediately to prevent any disaster. Yeonwoo asks if he plans to go to Hyojo's palace, and he reassures her, promising that nothing bad will happen. Meanwhile, at Hyojo's palace, Huida sneaks into the room, thinking this must be the place Silhung mentioned. However, a strange scent lingers in the air, and his eyes fall on a lady lying on the bed. He wonders if this is the woman whose hair Silhung sent. Suddenly, the door opens, and Hyojo appears, surprising him. Huida freezes, questioning why he is here, while the ruler reminds him that this is his palace and it is natural for him to be present. Then Hyojo adds that he has a command. The woman on the bed must share it with Huida. Shock and fury overwhelm him at the audacity of the order, and tension fills the room as the stakes of the situation sink in. Everything hangs on this moment. The danger of the previous god of death's bride, the secrets of the lineage, and the clash between Huida and Hyojo's power and authority, leaving the audience on edge, wondering what will happen next. In the next moment, Lord Huida confronts Lord Hyojo, clearly shaken and filled with anger. He cannot believe what he is hearing, as he questions why he is being pushed to betray the one he loves and be with another woman. He rejects the idea completely and tries to walk away, hoping to end the matter. However, before he can leave, he is suddenly pushed back and falls to the ground. This shift in control changes everything. As he struggles, Hyojo notices something is wrong and points out his weak state. At that moment, Huida begins to connect the feeling in his body to a past event, recalling the day Mrs. Dan Hui drugged him. As a result, he suspects that the strange scent from earlier may be the cause. Meanwhile, Hyojo watches closely and warns that moving like this could be dangerous, suggesting that he should stop resisting and simply rest. In response, Huida grows even more furious, demanding to know what has been done to him. However, Hyojo responds calmly, almost mockingly, reminding him of his own past wish to find a bride and escape his duties as an envoy. He claims that he has only fulfilled that wish by bringing a bride to him, yet instead of gratitude, he is met with anger. Furthermore, he makes it clear that resistance is useless, and with that, he turns and leaves, confidently stating that in the end, Huida will still end up sleeping with that woman. The tension lingers even after he exits, leaving him alone in a helpless state. Meanwhile, outside, Yeonwoo waits patiently, holding on to his earlier words that nothing bad would happen. However, despite that promise, her heart refuses to settle. As time passes, unease continues to grow within her, and although she cannot act, she remains there, waiting, because it is the only thing she can do. A sudden sound comes from the right, and Yeonwoo turns at once, only to see Lord Huida's chariot arriving. Without hesitation, she rushes toward it, filled with worry, calling out as she tries to know if he is safe or hurt. However, just when she expects to see him, a woman steps out instead, and it is Seolhung. This shocks her, and she quickly questions why she is there. In response, Seolhung reveals that everything has gone wrong, as Hyojo has intercepted their letters. This news only deepens the tension, and Yeonwoo immediately demands to know what has happened to Lord Huida. She wonders whether he has been captured, noting that he trusted only Seolhung, yet she is the one who returned. Her voice rises with anger, but she is quickly stopped and warned to watch her words. Furthermore, Seolhung challenges her, asking what she has done besides waiting, and then says that this entire situation is because of her. As a result, Yeonwoo is shaken, and she reflects inwardly, blaming herself and thinking that if she had not been here, he would not be in danger. Yet, at the same time, she questions why Seolhung came to find her, realizing she truly has no power to change anything. However, instead of breaking down, she suddenly changes her expression and makes a firm decision, asking Seolhung to take her to the palace because she will face Hyojo herself. Soon after, we see her arrive there, walking forward with heavy thoughts. She reflects on her past, admitting that in this life she never wanted to be involved with him again. She had wished to forget everything he did to her, to let go of the hatred she once held, and to live peacefully as if none of it had happened. Moreover, she had hoped that by doing so, she might finally find happiness, even if only once. However, she now realizes that hope was nothing but a foolish dream. Meanwhile, Hyojo notices her arrival and reacts with surprise, recalling her past words about never meeting again. At that moment, she understands that no matter what she does, she cannot escape this cursed fate. Therefore, she resolves to end it herself this time, and with that firm resolve, she moves forward, holding a knife tightly as she walks toward him with burning determination. We see Lord Huida, who lies down in pain, struggling as a strange feeling spreads through his body. His chest burns and breathing becomes difficult, which causes him to grow more uneasy. At that moment, a woman lies beside him, and in his confusion, he believes it is Yeonwoo. As a result, he reflects that he has seen her many times before, and it feels strange that she appears now in this moment and in this way. Without thinking clearly, he pulls her close, holding on to her as if she is truly the one he longs for. Meanwhile, we shift to Yeonwoo, who stands before Hyojo. He calls her to come closer, yet she remains still and silent. This reaction amuses him, and he laughs, saying this is exactly why he likes her. She asks what is so funny, and he responds by expressing his delight at seeing her, adding that her appearance reminds him of his late mother, which brings back old memories and fills him with longing. However, she does not respond. Instead, she recalls a moment earlier in the chariot with Seolhung. In that past scene, she was told that Hyojo's true goal is her, and everything that has happened was planned to capture her. Furthermore, she was warned that if she steps into his palace on her own, he will be pleased and at some point lower his guard, which is the only chance she has to act. Returning to the present, she questions his actions, wondering why he desires something from her when she has never truly understood his reasons. In response, he speaks vaguely, turning the matter back on her and suggesting that she must also want something, which is why his beloved was taken. As a result, she demands the release of Lord Huida, insisting there is no other reason for her presence. He then questions why she is looking for that man here, yet she makes it clear that he already knows the answer. With nothing left to say, she decides to comply with his wishes and asks him to return her beloved. This bold stance makes him laugh again, and he recalls a past moment when she played the piano for him. He reveals that ever since then, he has called many musicians, yet none could play it properly, and because of that, he had them all killed. Hearing this, she remembers Ms. Danhoi's words about those who played the harp for him never returning alive. Although she finds his reason cruel and petty, she still orders that the harp be brought, deciding to grant his wish while holding on to her resolve. Yeonwoo closes her eyes and recalls the first day she played for Hyojo, back when Lord Huida stood beside her and gently encouraged her to play instead, noticing she felt uneasy. That memory gives her strength, and in the present, she plays the instrument once again. When she finishes, she demands that Huida be released as promised. However, Hyojo simply shakes his head, making it clear that one performance is not enough to grant her wish. He rises and calls her naive, then calmly states that the first step is to ensure she never leaves his sight. This causes her to react strongly, insisting that he must release Huida first, or she has no reason to follow anything he says. In response, he walks closer and refuses, explaining that the man is a god of death, an immortal being, and if he lets him go, he would only return to kill him. Furthermore, he adds that until he is no longer a god of death, release is impossible. At this point, she argues that if he truly wants to stop his power, then he should let him go. However, he dismisses her concern and brings up what he claims to know from the former god of death, explaining that the only way for such power to pass on is through lying with his bride. As a result, he raises a disturbing question, wondering if the former bride were to be with the current god of death, would the power still transfer? This shocks her deeply, and he leaves the thought hanging as he walks away, suggesting they will find out in time. Yet, just when it seems nothing more will happen, she suddenly pulls out the knife hidden in her dress and strikes. He turns at that exact moment, but the blade still pierces his shoulder. He grabs her hand firmly, stopping her, and asks one final question. He reveals that he has heard she is the bride of the current god of death, and wonders if being with her could grant him that power as well. Hearing this, she is filled with anger and calls him out. But before she can react further, he suddenly pulls her in and kisses her, turning the moment into something even more unsettling. We watch as Yeonwoo struggles to free herself, yet in that brief moment, she quickly slips something into Hyojo's mouth. He is caught off guard, and almost at once, he pushes her away. The knife lodged in his shoulder drops to the ground, and he stares at her in shock, demanding to know what she has made him swallow. At that instant, we are taken into a flashback where Seo-hong hands her a small drug, explaining that it is a sleeping pill that will make him fall into a deep sleep as if he has passed out. However, she questions how she could make him take it, especially since it does not dissolve in water. In response, Seo-hong calmly suggests that there is a simple way, a method only she can use, hinting that even something as small as a kiss should not be a problem. Although she hesitates, she places the drug in her mouth, realizing that the decision has already been made. Back in the present, Hyojo grabs her and quickly understands the plan, realizing she expected him to kiss her. He laughs at the realization, yet before anything else can happen, the effect takes hold, and he collapses to the ground. At the same time, a guard outside hears the noise and calls out, asking what is happening. Seeing her chance, she picks up the knife with the intent to end it, but just as she moves, the guard enters and stops her from completing her plan. The situation shifts again, and the guard calls for help, forcing her to act quickly. Instead of staying, she chooses to slip away, deciding that confirming Lord Huida's safety is now more important than anything else. In the next moment, we see Lord Huida struggling as a dull, cold scent fills the space beside him, and as the woman moves closer, he notices that her scent is different from the usual, which makes him uneasy. Consequently, he forces himself up and pushes her away, slowly realizing what is happening. Yet before he can fully react, she knocks him down again. He pleads for her to stop, and with effort, he pushes her to the ground, but suddenly she cries out for help, which only deepens his confusion. At the same time, he stares at her, trying to recall if he has ever seen her before. Just then, Seo-hong enters, and Lord Huida, still weak, tries to understand the situation, but she urges them to leave at once, since Yeonwoo is waiting. At the mention of that name, concern takes over, and he immediately asks if she is safe. He attempts to move toward Seo-hong. However, his strength fails him, and he collapses, which forces Soho to step in and hold him up. Meanwhile, Soho turns to Seo-hong and asks what should be done with the woman, and Seo-hong decides they should take her along, since she has many questions for her during the journey. Furthermore, we are reminded that Hyojo is still being threatened by Yeonwoo, which adds even more tension to the unfolding events. As they move toward the chariot, we are taken into Seo-hong's thoughts, where she recalls her earlier words to Yeonwoo about how, as long as Hyojo remains alive, he will never leave her alone. However, in the present, a new thought forms in her mind as she begins to see things differently, realizing that if Yeonwoo succeeds in killing Hyojo, she will no longer be needed, and may instead become an obstacle to her own plan. Consequently, a darker decision starts to take shape within her. Just when it seems like everything is about to unfold quietly, the moment is broken as Yeonwoo suddenly runs out of the palace. In response, Seo-hong watches her and reaches a firm conclusion. It is better to end things now, which brings a chilling shift to the situation. Enjoying this so far? Comment Part 2 below for the next part. Until next time, ciao!